Most people in this industry know Shannon Nordstrom as the president of ARA, the owner of one of the most respected recycling operations in the country, or the voice behind the nationally syndicated Under the Hood radio show. But what a lot of people don't know is how much of that was shaped long before the titles, the radio show, or the leadership roles. In this episode, we talk about family, faith, building a business through massive industry change, and how Shannon learned to balance responsibility, service, and entrepreneurship across multiple generations. This ended up being less of an interview and more of a conversation about what it really takes to lead in this industry over the long haul. Here's my conversation with Shannon Nordstrom. If you're tired of being locked into contracts or being told you need all new equipment, check out YardSmart. It's the yard management platform built for self-serve yards with no contracts, and you can use your current hardware. Add integrated credit card processing if you want, and run retail and scrap point of sale plus a native admissions process in one system. The best part? YardSmart is known for being extremely responsive. If your suggestion makes sense, they'll build it. Learn more or book a demo at yardsmartapp.com. Mention this ad and they'll waive the setup fee and give you your first month free. Offer good for 1 year from the episode air date. All right. Well, cool. I'm so glad we're doing this. You were when I came up with this idea last year. I had a list of names. You, of course, were on the top of the list. Not just because you're the current president of ARA, but because you're just such a well-known entity in this industry, and I think people are gonna listen. They're gonna tune in. So selfishly, I get.
I hope I can live up to the expectation here.
Yeah. No, I don't think you'll have any problem. So, Shannon Nordstrom, current president of the Automotive Recyclers Association. You are the. You're not the president because we had a discussion at dinner last night. Your father is the president of Nordstrom's, right?
He is, and will be the president of our corporate board until he is no longer able to.
Exactly. So what is are you? You're the owner.
Yeah, my wife and I are the owners, and we have our little corporate board, which is myself and my father and my mother.
Yeah.
And we also have our CFO, our treasurer, Nick DeLeo, is on that board as an advisory role.
Doesn't have the name.
And no, he doesn't, but he does a great job for us. And so he's involved because we need people to keep track of us. We kind of work like a circus act, and we need good people around us that are solid and stable and all of that. So it works well.
Yeah. And when you say you have a board, do you have formal board meetings, or is everything very informal? Like I have talked with some family businesses. We both know the Wilberts.
Yes.
And I've kind of seen behind the curtain a little bit, and they're kind of rigid in the way that they have structured meetings, and they do things a certain way, but they have a lot more family members. What's it like?
We actually purposely take once a year and have an annual meeting to satisfy the corporate requirements in our state. You know, some people just send in the thing that says, yeah, we had an annual meeting, all is well. And you can do that too. But we purposely have done that. Our attorney a number of years ago, Charlie Dorothy, who worked with my parents, had said, you know, you guys should get together. You should set up ground rules, kind of make sure there's a time if there's any grievances need to be aired. And nothing really happens.
The airing of the grievances.
Yeah, but just be able to talk through things, write down some things that have happened during the year. What are some of the things that are on the radar? And just memorialize it into a corporate book and keep that with the corporate stock certificates and those sort of things. And as we have been transitioned from my parents owning the business to me, my wife and I completely owning the business, we've done that successfully now for close to 30 years in a row.
Really?
And it's been a good help. Now I look forward to it and kind of push that it happens, even though it really doesn't need to. I mean, the things we have set up are working pretty well, but we just force ourselves to have those meetings. And we pay an off-site attorney to be there as kind of the note taker, the person to facilitate, to make sure we stay on our structure and make sure that we do that and stick with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so you mentioned a couple times that you and Tammy own the business.
Yes. That's
kind of unique as well. Most of the time, I mean, I've seen plenty of instances where the spouse works in the business. Most often the wife is working in the business, but doesn't have an ownership role. And so what's that like? How did you come to your partnership in marriage must be such that this just made a lot of sense.
Exactly right. And it's just what our family had done. My mom and dad were partners in the business. And my parents saw early on that I had such a passion and a fire for what we were doing. And of course, with Tammy coming in, we were married in 1995. And see how quick I got that?
That's good.
That's good. You
don't want to mess that up.
No, but in the beginning, our attorneys had us set some things up with some guardrails with a non-family member being involved. But then over time, as we have gotten more structured in the company and more years have passed, we took those guardrails down, and my wife and I are a union, and everything we do is together. So why wouldn't we own the business together? And now we have things set up in a trust so that we keep the future available for our children, and if they're interested. Right now, our son just started working in the business, but we want to be able to keep that available. And our goal would be to not just be a first generation, second generation, now a third generation working in the company. Mm-hmm. It'd be tremendous if it could get to a fourth generation. But right now we're working on the third.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep, even though I want to go back.
You and I, this could be trouble because both of us have the ability to chat a little bit.
Yeah. Which this could be really good. Well, I definitely want to go back and even though I think your origin story is probably one of the most told origin stories in our industry, I want to touch on it. But since we're here, I want to talk about the multi-generational aspect of your business and how that relates to the industry.
I have some strong thoughts on that, so thanks for asking that.
Yeah. So. You're talking about the multi-generation, not your origin story.
Well, the origin story getting into multiple generations.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I was just recently, like when I say recently, I mean this week, last week, I have been looking at some of our legacy training on the university, and one of the courses is building a healthy family business. And we're gonna spin up an article for the magazine on this topic. And what I found when I reviewed it is it's very, very dated, but it's really good content. And so I think it's an important course that we update. But my question is, what do you do? So you've transitioned from first generation to second generation, and now you're looking at transitioning to the third generation. What are some key things that you feel are really important so that, because as we know, a large percentage of those businesses will never make it to the third generation?
When I look at our story, I'm a little bit unique. Our business, just as quickly as I can tell it, started on our family dairy farm in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. Yeah. With my mom and dad they were already on the farm, but being thrust into running the farm when my grandfather died. His name was Walter Nordstrom, and he was a South Dakota state senator and had gotten involved in politics. My grandmother was a realtor in the area, and they...
What year was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I've got to go back. I think I'll get that
Decades.
wrong.
Was it 30s?
Well,
40s?
No. He passed away before I was born, but my sister knew him, so it would have been 60s, late 60s.
Okay. And the reason I brought that up is when you said your grandmother was a real estate agent, I thought that's kind of progressive.
Yeah, Nordstrom Realty, and but she had started because Walt was in the realty. But anyway, that's a whole other story. We can go down that rabbit hole for a while. I'll try to stay on track. I'll try really hard. Yeah. But
this is actually the perfect venue for you because there is no track.
No, and this place we're doing that at right now. Yeah. People, can they know where we're at?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, we're sitting in Markham, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah.
At the ARA show, the Automotive Recyclers of Ontario, and they were having a great show here, lots of attendance. Yep. But neither one of us are as invested in this show as we are when we're back home.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, for us, there's a lot to learn. I sat through Chris Douglas's session, which was really interesting, and I know that there's sessions going on. It's not that there's a lot to learn, but there's a lot of networking opportunities for definitely. Us, to network with our Canadian
But our
friends.
Responsibilities here are not the same as in the States.
That's right.
So it's a little bit easier for me to sit here and kind of go, this is a good time to do this. Because if I was back home, I'd have things I'd be thinking about more. If we're at one of our conferences back in the States, either one of us are going to have other things that are on our mind. So this is a great place to do this.
Yeah, and I'm glad we were able to because I knew I wanted to, and I wasn't sure. This was a last-minute decision.
I'm glad it came together. That's kind of how I leave my life, so it's okay. Yeah. But back to that, my parents were thrust into this family farm when Grandpa died. And they didn't plan on that. They were working jobs in the city. My dad was working as a milkman for Lakeside Dairy, and my mom was working in a large meat packing plant in their office, running punch cards, they called them at the time. And so when Grandpa died, Grandma said, hey, this farm.
Which parent? Which side is it?
I was on my dad's side.
So she was paternal grandfather.
Yes. So grandfather Nordstrom, Walter Nordstrom.
Oh, of course, you said that.
Yeah, and so they all of a sudden had the responsibility thrust upon them to run this dairy farm. And it was at the time a very automated dairy farm. It was the first glass pipeline with an electric vacuum pump system to milk the cattle. It was a stanchion setup. My dad expanded that with the family's help to where we were running 2 shifts in and out of there out of 28
So
stanchions.
immediately I'm sensing that it's in your DNA, because if anybody visits Nordstrom's Automotive, it is your grandfather was very progressive in the dairy business.
Yes.
And that's kind of in your DNA.
Yeah, and he went into the state legislature because he was pissed off about margarine.
About who?
Margarine, the fake butter.
The fake butter. Yeah.
And that's how he got involved in politics.
Yeah.
And he ended up being in our state legislator for a long time. And my dad can tell the story better, but he was literally a straw poll among Republicans in a dark room from being the governor of South Dakota.
Wow.
And his friend got to be the governor because we're a very Republican state, and whoever was going to come out of that side would most likely be the governor.
Yeah.
And so my dad that's a fun story when I hear it.
Yeah.
But
I think it's cool that's kind of in your DNA, that your grandfather was progressive. He thought about the dairy business. He looked at and put in things to make it more advanced.
Exactly. I actually use that in some of my presentations to talk about that.
You do the same thing.
That farm has been very progressive, whether we realized it until now or not.
That's cool.
And so they were thrust into the farm. And so as things changed, all 3 of us kids, I have 2 sisters, Yvette Vanderbrink, and she is a well-known auctioneer all across the world. And my other sister is Suzette Nordstrom Hoven, and she sells potted plants and nursery stock for Monrovia nurseries across the whole upper Midwest. All 3 of us kids you put us in a, as my dad said, you put us in a bag. It'd be fun to watch to see who gets out.
But all high performers. That's really cool.
And so, and we love each other, and we all grew up in this crazy environment eventually that was, getting back to where I was trying to go.
Yeah.
My dad being a broke farmer.
Yeah.
With the need to get a pickup for the farm. Grandma had helped them with a lot of things, but she was tough. And so her tough love was that, I'm telling an abridged version here, but the truck, no, we're not doing a truck. You got to figure that out on your own. And so my dad went and he figured out a wrecked Ford pickup from, at the time, the powerhouse recycler in our area, junkyard, whatever you want to call it, was Arndt's Wreck King. They had a very nice facility, one of the first ones to put in a Hollander computer system, the big behemoth system in the day. And my dad was a hot rodder in high school, loved cars.
I've seen the tractor.
Yeah, we can talk about that. He even spent a little time in Springfield, South Dakota, at a technical school for automotive out of high school.
Yeah.
And this pickup ended up being used on the farm for 8 months or a year. I actually have a little record book that they kept. And he took a trade. He'll remind me of that. But he made $72 on the pickup after he sold it, and realized that, you know what, I could do that again. And so he started buying wrecked Ford pickups and repairing them. And that was the beginning of what would become Nordstrom's used and rebuilt trucks, and then also would become Nordstrom's Repairables.
Which
and then
still exists.
Yeah, well, and eventually became Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated once we incorporated everything as a actual business. Actually had our zoning correct, and this is an evolution over time that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And to this day, Nordstrom's Automotive Inc. is on the original family ground. Original family dairy barn still exists, being used for storage of automotive interiors now.
I've been in it.
And if you do an overhead drone view of us, we are still completely surrounded by farm ground.
Yeah.
And you got to drive 2 miles east or west on a gravel road, and you hit the highway, or a mile north on the road that we put in and paved to the north to hit the next highway, so we could have a paved road into our place in 2015. But we are literally in the country.
Yeah.
And so that's where it all started.
I think it's cool because in this industry, we often talk about how there's no real standard, right? When you buy a car, you take it apart, you sell the parts. That's it. Other than that, there's a million different ways to do it. And additionally, there's a dozen different locations that are right. There are no wrong locations. I think your location proves that. I think Pam's proves that.
Oh my
right?
goodness,
you can exist in the middle of nowhere, and you can be wildly successful. And you have 60 plus acres, but you don't need 60 plus acres, because I often will point to Alliance in the Bronx, New York. They sit on less than an acre, if I remember correctly, and they're wildly successful. They're a great operation, and so I just think it's really cool that we exist in an industry where you can be successful on an acre, you can be successful on 60 plus acres in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. You have to build your model that fits what's available to you.
Yeah.
And because where we started, it was an evolution. So it started as those first wrecked pickup trucks, eventually became medium duty C65, C70 grain trucks. And he would find those and fix them up. And eventually the neighbors, the farmer neighbors, he would sell them to them. They would say, well, how do you do that? And here's these other handy farmer neighbors.
Yeah.
Then he would start selling the wrecked trucks to and telling them where they could get the parts, which body shops were friendly for doing the frame repair and the painting repair. And so all those things would come together. And then eventually there was more people buying them. And it led to him saying, how do I get more of these vehicles? And asking the questions, where do they come from? How do they get to Arndt's Wreck King? What's the background?
Yeah.
And then eventually there was customers that came out. And one customer, Mark Larson, and Mark he found out for a mutual insurance company. And they started talking. And what do you do with your cars? And that eventually led to my dad realizing that there was an opportunity there. I'm going super fast on this history.
No, that's fine.
But it led to him making connections to make an insurance contract with Millbank Royal Insurance. And way over there. Like anything else we've done many times in our life, he was way out punting his coverage on this deal. And he was saying, yep, we can do that. But he found out that our friends in the industry in that area were very satisfied with the very low cost of goods of what they were buying vehicles for. I'll just put it that way. And it was very evident to my dad with his just intellect. He's a super smart guy. Never went to any further college, like I said.
Yeah.
Just super smart. His mind moves so fast. But he realized right away there's an opportunity here. And so he became a disruptor.
But yeah, that's what I want to scratch that open a little bit. You said that the other people that were buying the salvage were happy with the low cost.
Of course they were.
Okay, but that's what I thought I understood.
Yeah, they were buying things for pennies on the dollar.
And so your dad looked at it and said, there's enough margin there where I can pay more.
Oh, for sure.
And that's what, okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He could see that. He's like...
And I don't imagine he made a lot of friends after.
They made it very difficult for us.
Yeah.
Very difficult for us. And I would say that's probably part of the reason why it was hard in the beginning for us to get a parts business going. When we really came back and I came in to get into the parts business, it made it difficult because there had been a lot of bridges that had been smoldering yet because of the aggressiveness that was shown as this repairable market of vehicles was blossoming. And so
at this point, he's still doing repairables.
Yes, okay. Repairables and acquiring. Of course, now I may have gotten some merging of
sure.
time there, but with the repairable business, you wanted those vehicles, and then you're getting other vehicles, and you're at that literally putting them in the trees. And there's some people knew we had them and would come out and get parts, but it wasn't a parts business per se.
So the insurance contracts were not an instrument to provide parts. It was an instrument to provide rebuildables.
We wanted all the vehicles,
right.
And we were learning how to match the parts with the vehicles. And enough people knew we had the parts. My mom had done some small advertising in like the shopping journals and stuff, and people would come out and get parts. But it wasn't with any organized fashion in the very, very beginning.
So from the very beginning, your mom was involved.
Oh yes, yeah. My mom. If you look at my mom and dad, I was so happy to have them in Birmingham, Alabama, for their first Automotive Recyclers Association convention.
That's cool.
When their son became president of the association from this little farm in South Dakota. That's why we had such a crew there. It was a proud moment.
Yeah,
and
great.
To be able to have my parents there. I'll probably get emotional there, but it was really, really fun. It was a moment I won't forget.
Yeah.
And having them there to be able to see what had happened and where those first moves that they had made and how they had got there, and to the point where you've done good. But my mom was in the beginning. She was the glue. She was the prayer warrior. My parents gave their lives to the Lord in 1972. and when I was 3 years old. And so she was the one that would pray and pray and pray. She is the one that when the checkbook had no money left, she would tithe. She would tithe all the time, but she would keep tithing. Just a very faithful lady. And she prayed us kids through our crazy years of high school. You can only imagine what that was like. She prayed us through business, and she still does to this day. And I'm glad that I grew up in that environment. I grew up in that household. I share the love for our faith that our parents taught us, my mom initially. Yeah. And we're not afraid of our faith because it's been such a crucial part of our existence. So us three kids grew up in this incubator. Just imagine this. We're dairy farming. There's 400 acres of crop ground. This is all being done by us. We're raising baby calves.
5 of you.
Raising baby calves, selling off the bulls, keeping the heifers, 2 rounds in the, I think, 28 stanchion parlor, so you're doing 50, 60 cows milking morning and night, and plus you're rebuilding pickups, you're having to hustle to get people parts if they happen to come out and ask about parts. So everybody was involved. So this incubator, as I called it, of our family business was faith-filled. It was crazy. It was fast-paced. There was no clock. You worked until you were tired, until you were done.
And you worked a few hours more, I imagine.
Yeah, and well, you just didn't quit because there was always more to do.
Yeah.
And you were always chasing the next thing. And so that environment is why all 3 of us kids our mom encouraged us so much. My friends told me that they always joked around with us. Like my mom would say, "Oh, so you killed him? I hope you killed him really good. I hope you did it with a lot of passion." She would encourage us to the point.
You talking about the cows?
Yeah, anything. That was their joke. She would give us self-confidence about anything. And so all 3 of us think we can run through a wall and we're not going to get hurt. And so we're not typically scared of much. But that's what we watched our parents do. Yeah. And then the faith piece was, we're going to be okay. This is horrible right now, but we're going to be okay. Yeah. The sun's going to come up in the morning. Our Father in heaven still loves us. There's a greater plan for our lives.
There's these constants.
Yeah, and so,
which makes the storm.
Yeah, and so that was what we grew up with, and I can't imagine being any other way. Yeah. And so that came a long ways from asking about my mom.
Because one of the things I was going to ask you is, we only barely touched on your resume in your part with Nordstrom's, but you've been chairperson of the certification committee for ARA for what, 20 years?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years. I know that you just cycled off of a responsibility at your local school board for 10 years?
12.
12 years.
And 9 or 10 as the president.
Right, 9 or 10 as president. You are one of 3 people who you have a syndicated radio show. Yep. Right, Under the Hood. We're going to talk about that.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
I've heard it, but I want to share with everybody the origins of that.
Sure.
Your mom.
Mom.
Yeah. So there's all these things, and I see. I get to see a little more of Shannon Nordstrom than most people do, and
more than you watch.
No. I say that because people on the EC, people who know you, that they I think we sometimes wonder, how do you do it? Like, how do you have these industry responsibilities, which are many. You have the business responsibilities, which is much. You have personal responsibilities that we learn of as we get to know you. And I don't know anybody else who's as stacked, agenda-wise as you are. And I was thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna ask you about that. But I think you answered the question before I ever asked it, while you describe and unpack what your childhood was like and what you witnessed with your mom and dad and your sisters.
Well, and another piece of that puzzle was the desire to give back. And there's something else just growing up in our church and how we were taught is that respecting other people, helping other people, giving back was at the core of what became a less selfish perspective of my parents when they really dove into their Christian faith, was that it's not always about you. It's
hardly about you.
It's about the people around you. It's the light that you can shine into the rooms that you walk into. It's the it's the positive vibes that you can give people to help them feel a little better if they're not feeling so good. And having some laughs along the way, having fun.
Did you ever read the book? It was popular, probably 15 years ago. It was called The Purpose-Driven Life.
I've listened to it.
I think it was Pastor Rick Warren. And I remember the very first sentence in that book says, "It's not about you."
Yep. And so it was, So, I mean, if you want to go down that road as far as doing all those things, we were involved in wanting to give back. And I watched my dad be involved. He gave his life to the local racetrack. He's in the Hall of Fame at Houston Speedway, one of the best known dirt tracks around the country. And he's in the Hall of Fame there for being a volunteer. He never took, I think he took one paycheck and a few meals in a hotel room every once in a while from him. Yeah. And we spent Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night at the racetrack. And
wait a second. Was all this fun? Everything you just saw?
It's all we knew.
The farm, the rebuilders, the parts, and now the racetrack, the hobbies. Was it fun? Did you guys have?
When I look back, my sisters and I talk, and we look back. We can't imagine it any other way.
Yeah.
And it's like anybody's childhood. Everybody's got their own experiences, but our experiences were really in a vacuum. You talk about the farm kids that would go to town. It was big eyes when we could ride our bikes on paved roads. It was, going to go to a local football game. We just didn't do that much until my sister became a cheerleader.
Yeah.
I didn't go into gymnasiums to watch sporting events until my son played basketball and ran cross country.
Wow.
That's just not anything that we did. We would drive by golf courses, and my dad would say, "Look at those people wasting their time playing pasture pool," and
that's perfect.
And we did what we did, and that's all we knew, and we loved it.
Yeah,
that's amazing. But when you think about that was our education. I mean, that was our life education because we encountered so many things. My dad would be milking cows. Somebody would show up at 6:30 at night to buy a car, and one of us 3 kids would have to go do the deal. He'd have stuff ready and coach us and turn us loose. We were selling cars at 10, 12, 13 years old.
That's amazing.
And so it was just part of what we did. It was our normal. So I watched my dad give his time. I watched my mom do, ladies' Bible studies, and she spoke for a while. She would go around and speak. I think about it now. I wish she would have kept doing that because she was so good at it. Of course, I'm this young. Watching my mom, she was great. But I think she was. She's got a tender heart and she can connect with people, and I watch that. And so it drives our employees a little bit crazy sometimes because I know one of our managers that ended up going on, he had another career opportunity. It was great. We're still friendly. But he wrote kind of a goodbye to us. And I just remember his one line from there is, and Shannon, you never know what his mind's thinking of. But there's always other things. And so not only did I get involved with this, I was the president of our commercial club in our small town for 14 years.
What's
before
that?
It's the civic organization of the businesses in town.
Okay.
And so I did that for 14 years before I got on the school board. And I don't know why, I'm just a glutton for it. But I don't know. I coached all my kids in all their sports. I was the head coach. I coached soccer for 14 years, and I didn't know anything about soccer. But boy, we had fun.
You're the original Ted Lasso.
I think I was. We had so much fun. You could ask my daughter
without all the languge, colorful language.
Oh, you could ask my daughter some funny stories about when I left the kids at practice one time because they weren't paying attention to me. I left them. They were 10-year-old kids, and I left them at practice. And they thought I was there. I drove away. I mean,
you just left a field full of kids?
I did. I knew where their parents were at. We were not far, but it was we just had a lot of fun doing that stuff. I coached. I did all those things, and I enjoy coaching our employees. I enjoy coaching.
You have a teacher's
life.
Heart.
I enjoy it. But we learned that in the environment that we grew up in. I don't know if I got the question answered. If I went somewhere else,
it's fun.
Okay.
At what point did you guys transition away from the dairy farm? Because this is 2 very different businesses that is going on, and I imagine at some point it became very hard, and a decision had to be made.
I'm thinking about a pivotal moment here, and there's been a few of them. And for me, high school was a pivotal moment. That everything I just described, I loved. It was what we loved. But I knew the dairy was not for me in the long term. So this would have been, I graduated high school in 1987. You don't have to do the math. I'm 56 years old. And when I graduated, I went to school for telecommunications, electronics, at a tech school. I was still driving to Minneapolis, buying cars at the salvage auction. Coming back on weekends, we were prepping cars, selling repairables.
And just for reference, so people know, that's is about a 4-hour...
4-hour drive. Okay. Jackson was about not quite halfway
Yeah.
where I went to school. But when we got into the telecommunications, the electronics course, and we're sitting in class with, I think his name was Mr. Temple, Wayne Temple. Anyway, that just popped into my head. But he was describing a semiconductor and how it worked. And I realized that I didn't give a shit anymore. I'm sitting there looking at class and like, my eyes are glazed over. I don't care. I'm thinking about getting to Minneapolis to figure out what cars are going to be for sale.
It was an aha moment.
Yeah, and so I called my mom. She was easier to break through to. And I said, Mom, I go, this isn't for me. I don't want to be here. She goes, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to come back and work in the family business. And I said, I think we can do more with parts. We were doing parts at the time, but nothing with any effort. And she goes, you don't want to do that. She goes, because at the time there's 5 employees. Some are for the farm. They're doing farm tasks and car tasks.
How about that interview? When you go for a job interview,
yeah,
can you milk a cow? Can you take an alternator off?
Can you throw a hay bale? Whatever it might happen to be. Can you keep my sisters in line? My daughters in line? Whatever it might be. But at that time, I also remembered in the back of my mind, I said, if there's a way that I could make a big enough difference that my mom and dad don't have to have that dairy anymore, I could accomplish both goals.
It was a lot of work, wasn't it?
I could accomplish both goals.
Yeah.
And so I came back full-time to work in the family business full-time in 1988 July, and just went all in. I was still raising heck, having fun, and I think I remember a time even up until I was 25 years old where my friends and I were having too much fun on the weekends and just being crazy kids.
Yeah.
And
at this point,
I had to really even refocus myself. Let me finish that story.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. We had a burn pile in the middle of the cattle yard where the trees that would fall down and everything, you'd bring them to the burn pile. You live in the country, you know. And I was walking down there one day because my friends and I had been out too late the night before, and I probably had a little bit of a headache. And I was just going out to get some fresh air, and I'm walking down in that area, and I literally hit my head on a tree branch sticking out of the burn pile. And I wasn't paying attention. I was just in kind of a tired daze, And I said to myself, okay, why am I doing this? And so it was at that point that I really even doubled down on my focus. And
you're mid-20s, right? Is that what you said?
mid-20s.
Yeah.
And
they say the male brain doesn't fully develop until 27.
My wife would argue that it's not done yet. She would argue strong about that. But she does repeat that quote to me often, that the male brain's not fully developed. We use that with our son, of course. Yeah. Still, he's 26 and he's getting there.
I get it. Yeah. And so you have one son and 2 daughters, right?
Yes. So at this time I'm coming back there with 5 employees and we're getting involved deeper into the business. And my parents quickly recognized at that point, how knowledgeable I was, how passionate I was. We used to still go up. There's some conflation of time here.
Were your sisters still in the business? Because I know eventually they moved on.
Yeah, my sisters.
At that time,
we all grew up in this same environment.
So, but when you came back,
no, my sisters were already. Yvette had went to lab phlebotomy school at a technical school.
So she's out of the business.
She's out doing her thing, drawing blood and working in the medical lab at the hospital.
Yeah, which is a typical career path to auctioneering.
100%. throw a prophetic minister in the middle of that and you got it. And then my other sister had went off, and just because it's relevant to what I just said earlier, she went to school at one of our state colleges. And she was going for teaching. She thought she wanted to be a teacher. I think she spent 3 days in school. She got into her first teaching class, and she had the same kind of a thing. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
She left college after 3 days and said it wasn't for her. And she said to Mom, she goes, I want to go. I love that floriculture, horticulture, landscape design. And they had a wonderful course at our local technical school. And she enrolled, and she did 3 different professions in that and made a wonderful career. But you know how she broke into it? She went out and she was working at a little landscape garden center, great people, making $12 an hour, doing what she loved.
It's not bad.
No, but it wasn't what she wanted.
Sure.
And she had heard that if she would go out to McMinnville, Oregon, to Monrovia Nursery, and if you would be willing to work with the migrant workers in the fields, grafting plants, pulling plants, doing this stuff, that you could maybe work your way into the sales office. And she did that.
Wow.
She went out and said, I can do that. And she outworked them.
Wow.
And she impressed them and made her way into their sales office. And now she has been one of their rainmakers for a lot of years in their business. But
That's amazing.
That's how it happened. But it's that same drive. It's that same gumption that was there to get things done, to make things happen.
So we both know, and this is going to seem like left field. But
I don't know if we're going the right path or not.
It's fine. But we both know Rod Needham. He's been ARA's counsel for 20-something years, 25 years. He also grew up in South Dakota. And I find it interesting, and maybe not even a coincidence, that his story is very much farm boy, several brothers, I think. And they also all became really high performers. And I think it's interesting, like, your sister's like you said, a rainmaker for the
she
company.
knows how to do it.
Your other sister is your other sister Yvette. I follow her on Facebook. She finds car collections where for a car guy like me, I watch and I'm like, I thought all the barn finds were done.
Nope.
And then she finds
here's the thing.
100 cars.
We could get lost in this for a while, but she's established herself well enough that they find her now.
Yeah,
and
I get that.
And she gets calls, and she's always out scouting, and people think they have a great collection until she tells them that isn't as cool as you think.
I imagine a lot of that. I've seen a lot of that happen.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is, what is it about South Dakota farms that produces?
It's a good Midwest farm work ethic.
Yeah.
And if you're in the right environment with the right faith backing, I think of Rod. I mean, I know his family. They went to Mitchell Christian. He was a state caliber runner. We can laugh about that. And he
fastest female in the U.S.
Rod, we didn't have to say that, Rod, but you can ask him about it. No, don't ask him about it.
We won't know until he won't unless he watches. He'll bring it up. Otherwise, we don't.
We're not telling him.
We'll
see if this is the Easter egg to see if Rod listened to the podcast or not.
Yeah.
And nobody else tell him. He's got to hear it for himself.
That's right. Yeah.
Or else, if you do see Rod, tell him to listen to the podcast and find out when they talked about us and what it was about.
Yeah, say, hey, I heard you're a fast runner.
No, he'll know then. That's too much of a. That's a tell.
Right.
That's a tell.
Funny.
But no, So my sister would tell me when she was out in the West Coast, Suzette, Yvette, Suzette, and Shannon. And if I would have been a girl, I would have been Shanette. Or most likely.
You could have been Everett.
Yeah, I could have been. Well, I could have joined their family, at Everett's.
Yeah.
With Tom, I could have been like somehow connected to the predecessors.
Exactly.
But the Midwest work ethic travels.
Yeah.
And she found that when she was out west and anywhere that she went, that's real.
Yeah. So let's get back.
Yeah, we get way off
Who cares? So we're having fun. We go back. You go back you leave school. You go back to the business, and that you're focused on trying to make the parts business big enough so that your parents can stop working the dairy farm.
Well, one of the things that I was starting to say before we went way down the path somewhere else was that during this transition time, we were going to my parents. They knew enough for sure that they didn't know everything. And so they would go to these local organizational shows like for Locator magazine. Mm-hmm. And the Upper Midwest had a really strong show.
So wait, early on, they knew that the trade association, maybe they didn't see it as a trade association, but they knew where other people gathered.
They did.
There was wisdom.
And what happened, I think, it was my mom would do the research. I could tell so many stories where my mom's researched something and said, hey, did you look into this yet? Yeah, no, I hadn't. But
radio show,
whatever it might be, but they would go to these places, and also at the auctions where my dad was going. Now he learned where the auctions were, trying to buy the repairable cars. He started, and he's great personality, easy guy to get along with.
Sure.
My mom was great too. They started making friends at the auctions, and that was the days where he'd have to flip a coin every once in a while with John Music from Central Auto Parts or Harry Halupchuk from John's Auto Parts or whoever the guys were there. And
there was the auction, and then was all the deals that happened after the auction.
Yeah, but we started making so many friends.
Yeah.
And I bought cars at a salvage auction when I was 14 years old. I used my first cell phone the big Motorola fat
Sure.
brick,
Yep.
standing in the salvage center in Minnesota, and it was John. I believe it was John Music from Auto Parts Cities. I think that was the right name of the business. That was his phone, and I called my mom. I said, "You'll never guess what? I'm talking on a phone in the middle of the auction," and
At 50 cents a minute.
yeah, whatever it might have been. It wasn't mine, but we were making those contacts, and then as we talked to those people, we learned about their businesses, and they had established parts businesses.
One of the key things about the industry is right now is how collaborative it is. Like all the competitors seem to want to help each other. You know, we see this with site visits. We see this with peer groups. We see it in a lot of different ways that recyclers love to help other recyclers. Is that something new, or did that exist back then?
It existed back then, and just to complete the loop on that story, because I could make this last a really long time, but I'll try to shorten it up, is that we'd met those people. We started learning about their businesses. We would stop and visit their businesses and go, wow, look at this. Mm-hmm. John's Auto Parts in Blaine was like the Mecca. He had one of the most elite facilities in the country, and it was right there. And so we would stop there and look at it, and we'd see all these folks that had these big repairable lots, and we always saw that and thought, wow, how'd that happen? What did they do to get to that point?
Yeah.
And then we found out that these people were very, very, because we were being kind to them and because we were respectful, they were more than willing to help us. Because in their eyes, we're in South Dakota. What's that going to hurt? You know, let's help these farm people figure out what they're doing here.
Yeah.
And even though my dad was upsetting a few people because he would start bidding up cars that they were probably buying for parts, and some were doing repairables also, he would buy them for other reasons because we had that opportunity to sell those. And so early on, we learned that. We also learned about the Upper Midwest Trade Show. I don't know what order of events this happened in, but they would have Wisconsin and Minnesota yards get together, and we would go up there and we'd leave late on a Thursday night or a Friday morning and get up there and take in a weekend show, a Friday, Saturday event, and we'd meet these people and then start seeing this vendor. We didn't know that existed, and that's how it happened. And so we met these people, and they also had a counterman's contest. I'm putting some things together here.
Yeah.
And Hollander sponsored it, and they would have this Top Gun contest. And because I was so into it, and I'm reading these books, the Hollander books, left and right, trying to figure out what fits what. And I've got a pretty good memory. It's not perfect, but I have a pretty good job of recall. And they'd have this contest, and nobody knew who we were. And I entered a contest, and I won it like 7 out of 10 years against all these counter guys from the Twin Cities and Wisconsin. And I still get static about it to this day from some of them. Yeah. But now all of a sudden the vendors started saying, "Who is this?" Hollander was picking on me because I was taking their money and taking their Hollander books. Yeah. And at the time, one of their salesmen would sit next to my then girlfriend, now wife, and he would like hit on her when I was up in the stage because he's just a dog, and that's what he did. But he's the one that ended up selling us a Hollander system.
I've met Tammy a few times. She can hold her own.
Yeah, she can hold her own. But that's who we ended up selling us our first Hollander system. Oh, wow. Our first Fast Parts computer system was sold by one of the best sales pitches I've ever given in my life. I've told this story before, but we had a weekend. My parents went like 2 days. You never left more than 2 days. That was maybe 1 day, maybe two.
You're still running a farm.
Yeah, and you couldn't leave. You were married to the black and white friends. And they left. A gentleman came into our business driving and pedaling a computer system out of the trunk of his car, and it was out of Texas, and it was called Fast Parts. And Fast Parts was, at the time, a pretty progressive program, but they had no Hollander interchange license.
This is the 80s, right?
Yes, yep. And it would have been early 90s, late 80s.
Okay.
Because I think we bought that system in 1989. And when my parents got back, I told them, I said, this is it. This is what we have to do.
Did they know you were doing this?
No, this guy showed up when they were gone.
And you just bought the system?
No, I didn't buy it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't buy it. I wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
And when they got back, I was like,
we have to buy it.
I was all excited. I couldn't leave them alone.
Yeah.
So I think the best sales pitch I've ever given was to convince my parents to sell the 64 Chevy Super Sport that my dad loved, camel, buckskin leather interior, pullback center console handle, tilt wheel, teak wood steering wheel factory.
I don't know. This doesn't sound like a good deal.
But I convinced my dad to sell that. I had gotten it out for my senior prom. I couldn't use it because it was raining and one of the window regulators was broken. We couldn't roll the window up. And so I knew it ran, and I convinced him we should sell that to buy this computer system. And it was $12,500, I think. And,
wow.
And I convinced him to sell that so we could buy that computer system. We made payments on that computer system. But that system had no Hollander interchange license in it. And so I had to look everything up in the book and then enter it into the system to put the Hollander numbers into it. And we ran that system until 1994. And that was when I had been up again at that conference, winning the counterman's contest. I didn't win it every year, but I was always right in the mix, but I won it most of the years. And that, when we came back, it would have been April of 94, our fast parts system literally ate our pigs and had flames shooting out of the power supply in the back when we got back that weekend. And so I called up Pat, who had just been harassing my wife as I was doing the contest. And I said, hey, what was that you guys were selling up there? And they had just started selling a kind of a small user system. Because before that, they had just a big, big blue IBM, looking thing. It was a huge system that cost a lot of money, an enterprise system. And they were starting to sell a smaller system. And we came to terms as quickly as we could to put in the Hollander system. And we patched our other one back together and got it going again. But we realized we were ready for our next step. Because by then, the parts business had already been growing.
Right.
That was 1994. And Jeff Balo, who now has Balo's he has his own yard, but he worked for Hollander, and he was the one that came down and did our install. And at that time, installs were a week. I mean, they'd come down and hang out. He got involved in trenching lines between two farm buildings so that we could put in a printer in a remote building, and he got involved in all kinds of stuff. But Jeff was there with that. I remember him saying to us, we were there, he goes, you guys have got a lot of stuff you've got around here. He said, if you get this stuff in the computer and get it onto the Eden system that was just coming into be, he goes, you're going to need to hire shippers. And I looked at him like he was crazy, but he wasn't wrong. And so all of a sudden, this was one of the first big steps where the world of Nordstrom's, people knew about us because of the repairables and now getting into the parts and because of these.
Were you still pretty much a local business?
Becoming more regional a little bit.
Yeah.
But they started realizing that we had good parts and we were good people and we were going to do what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
Because that's how we were brought up.
Sure.
You want to treat people right at sometimes an expense. To take care of people. And that translated into business. And I remember my dad when we were selling cars, it was the same way. He wanted people to take care of them. He wanted them to have an experience. There was pop in the fridge. There was a playroom for kids to play in. It was just constantly like that. He would send them pounds of butter, for gifts, and squares of butter, and just all these different things that we did. Whether it was a customer or an insurance adjuster or whatever it might happen to be, you couldn't give them money, but he'd give them butter from the barn, and they loved it. You just being nice to people, pouring into other people.
Sure.
And that translated, and so all of a sudden there's something happening here. We're having to hire some more people. We're having to get other people to help us, and it's quickly realizing that.
So this is mid-90s.
Yeah, we're quickly realizing that my desire and my ability to connect the technology that I went to school for and loved to use but didn't want to learn how to fix.
Right.
That there was a connection there, and we were also very fortunate that we had. Boy, I hope people think this is exciting or boring. I don't know, but we had Eros Data Center, a huge Earth Resource Observation Center, just not far from us. And our local telephone company serviced them with their, what in the beginning was ISDN lines and T1 lines, and then became digital fiber to feed this big, way ahead of its time government place that's not far from me.
Yeah.
Well, their cabling went right by our place.
Oh, wow.
And so we were able to get early on the internet.
That's incredible.
We were able to get early onto T1 lines, fiber. And so that local telephone company was a huge part of our growth.
So
we had a website.
I don't think people understand unless they've seen where you are, how important that was.
Our website, NordstromsAuto.com, started in 1998. Wow. And that was with the help of Alan Mockmiller, who's now my sales manager. He's been with us over 30 years. And he had an interest in this stuff. And we were both farm kids that the parents were in the Bible study together. And Craig Halverson, one of our managers that neighbor farmer, his parents knew my parents and went to school at the same little Garrettson High School. These are the people that that eventually from the neighborhood that ended up getting involved in what we were doing there, and each one of them had a crucial piece in trying to figure out to take all this energy. You had this like little fusion ball that was going that you had to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah,
and there was never a plan to make it into a formal business. So we had to kind of back our way into everything, because the repairable business, I got to go back to this because I think it's really important. My dad was selling the trucks, the wrecked trucks, couldn't fix not enough hours in the day, and he started selling them wrecked. More people asking. He's like, where can I get more? I told you about that. Found the contracts. I might have had that a little bit out of line on timeline, but buying at the auctions. And then all of a sudden, there was a guy that lived just down the road. The interstate runs by within 7 miles of our business. I-90 runs all the way across the country. And this guy came up and he said, hey, his name was Bob Nelson, or Bill Nelson. No, Bob Nelson. He said, my brothers and I are going to start this little car pamphlet, a magazine, and a trader. And we'd like to know if to my dad, if you want to put your wrecked vehicles in there and sell them as wrecks. And my dad's like, that seems, I don't know, I suppose we could try it. And he goes, well, we need some content, and we're right next by. I can come by and take pictures of the cars. We'll make up an ad, and we'll put you out there.
Sounds like the Auto Trader.
It was Deals on Wheels magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And
that ended up being nationwide.
It was
I've
huge.
Heard of it.
Yeah, they ended up they made a section just for truck, race, and repairables and recreational vehicles. And the first...
So Auto Trader must have been a competitor, because
later down the line.
I've heard of that magazine, and then, of course, I used to...
So we were the first people to advertise repairable vehicles in a trader like that we know of.
Yeah.
And when we did that, oh my gosh, the phone rang off the hook. Their magazine went viral.
Before
viral was on the phone.
Yeah.
And it took off. It was on newsstands everywhere. We couldn't get enough cars. And there was a point in our repairable business that we were selling, I think the highest I ever remember was 47 vehicles in a week. Right from that little farm in South Dakota. So we truly were a repairable business.
Yeah.
But I could also, from talking to enough people that I got to know and meet, could tell that was going to be a short-lived thing. The auctions were starting to come into play. They were starting to see some of the consolidation with Copart and IAA. You got your ear to the ground. You're reading the stories in the auto recycling magazines, the pamphlets that used to come out. My parents were original members of the Automotive Dismantlers. Was it ADRA was the original name? Yeah. And they've been involved for many, many years. They joined. They realized that they didn't know enough. They wanted to get more involved. And so that's where we started foreseeing a little bit more. And plus, all of a sudden, we had more vehicles than we knew what to do with. If you look at the pictures on our wall from 1997, 98, 99, our 64 acres was overpopulated beyond belief. It was not organized very well. It was good, but it was really bad at the same time.
Yeah.
And so we realized that, and we had some managers that we'd hired by this time. They were saying, you guys, we got to make a better business out of this. You're wasting so much money on stuff you don't need. And my dad, I think by that time, we had decided that we wanted to buy every wrecked car in the middle of that area of the country. It was our right to own them, and
they were yours. They just didn't know it yet.
Exactly. My mom would say, "My goodness, Art, you don't need that '79 Chevette in Lake Preston, South Dakota."
Nobody needs a '79 Chevette. Not even in '79.
That was the example, though. It's like and. Boy, I got to stop there for a second. I remember going with my dad, and he would get postcards in the mail from insurance independent claims agencies, and it would be a vehicle to bid on. They would send it out on postcards for bids. Just think about this.
I think about the timeline.
Yeah, and so we would go out and we would drive 2.5 hours to, say, Chamberlain, South Dakota, to look at and view the vehicle to be able to write a bid to send back into the insurance company.
Wow.
No wonder why they found the auctions.
Yeah.
So we
talk about that in today's terms. We talk about it often, how you have to review. How long does it take? It takes you 5-7 minutes to review one vehicle online. You look at 100 of them. That's however many, and then you bid on all of them, and then you end up getting 5 cars, right? Well, compare that to getting in the car and driving 2.5 hours.
They keep these bids open for 2 weeks. And so we would do this, but then eventually I have to tell that story because it's just it happened regularly. I mean, there was the tan-colored postcards from Dakota Claims.
Wow!
But those things there again, they were forming us. We were meeting insurance people. We were in the mix on kind of all sides of the fence. We were getting to know the dealership people because we were buying tons of parts to fix these vehicles. Had to have some advice every once in a while. My dad knew all the guys at the parts departments. From the racetrack that he volunteered at, the Ford tractor comes into that story at some point. He knew everybody in the automotive community around Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They all got to know him. And not knowing it was going to become this business, he was already advertising and didn't even know it. Yeah. The Nordstrom Special Ford tractor was advertising before he ever knew there was going to be a business. And so when we got into that, that chamber of having all these vehicles, I'm going back to 1999, it was like, okay, this is unsustainable. And then by that time, we're starting to wonder if the good stuff's getting filtered off. Are the insurance companies using us possibly to take care of their crud? Because we got to drive 4 hours to pick up a '79 Chevette that's bent in a bone. Yeah. You can't do that. And so I said to my dad, and we discussed this, and managers were telling us can't do this. There's a local auction down here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They're good people. We buy cars there already. Let's deliver the contracts to them. Let's say, you guys, would you be interested in this business? The sad part about this, when I think about it, my dad had bought ground and had it zoned in our little city for a potential vehicle auction. And at the time, though, it wasn't God's timing. Yeah. But we could have started our own auction.
Where is the closest auction to you right now?
Well, Sioux Falls, it's Lenox. It's south of Sioux Falls now. IAA has a branch.
IAA has one.
Yeah, and it's half hour away, 45 minutes away.
Oh, okay.
Not a ton of cars, but it's a good
What
location.
About the next one?
We got to go to Omaha or Minneapolis, 3 or 4 hours either way.
Yeah.
Nothing's close to us.
No, I get it. And I just like to hear that out loud.
Yeah, nothing's close to us.
Yeah.
And so when we would go down, I said, here's these cars. Here's the volume we're getting. We're picking up X number of cars. And of course, they're like, oh, that's a lot for us. We're not sure if we can do that. But our thought is, okay, we're strong enough now. We'll just go down and buy the cars that we want.
Right.
And they can handle everything else. That was great until I got the letter in the mail. I think it was a letter in the mail that said, IAA is buying Sioux Falls Auto Auction. Little did I know how that was going to go. Nobody did.
Yeah.
How I could be a month before sitting at the auction with the auction buddies buying the cars.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, you're watching people in Uzbekistan buy the Toyota Avalon that you used to buy.
Yeah.
I'm putting that all together in a different time capsule.
Yeah.
But I never could have imagined that.
No.
I had foresight, but not good enough.
Yeah.
At that time. So that was the beginning of the change. We knew the repairable business wasn't sustainable, and so we really started to focus in on our parts business because we just knew that repairable thing was going to change. It was just the writing was on the wall that all those cars would end up at the auctions, and everybody and their brother is going to be buying them.
Yeah.
And that was kind of that's kind of a dead end of that story, but
that's good.
And that evolved obviously to the point where now I'm on the industry relations trying to work with the auctions.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, that was my first question.
Oh my gosh, this is bad. We're gonna
let's talk about the radio show. Can we?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I know a little bit about this story. This was your mom's marketing idea, wasn't it?
It was. So all right, timeline.
Let's put it in context. Tell everybody what Under the Hood is and its reach, and then let's briefly talk about its origin.
As we sit here today, the Under the Hood show is a nationally syndicated radio show on Westwood One satellite, and you've probably listened to a Westwood One broadcast.
Sure.
You listen to the Super Bowl on the radio, you're hearing Westwood One more than likely, and podcast, and now YouTube. And the studio is in our own building at Nordstrom's 2.0.
You just built that, right?
Yep. When we built the building in 2018, I made room for a studio, thinking in the future that we would do that. That got supercharged during COVID, and Russ, my 50-50 partner on the radio show who manages our mechanical repair shop, single-handedly built a studio that is amazing. I bring radio people in there, and they're like, "You guys did this yourself?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Him." Russ Evans.
Yeah.
He's the one that did it. I got to bring him to the convention when I became area president.
Remember.
I brought everybody.
Yeah, I know. I don't think there's anybody in Garrettson or Sioux Falls.
I wanted to bring Benji, our manager, that's been so crucial, but he was willing to stay back and make sure that we didn't have a complete disaster while we were all gone.
One of your guys had a health concern, didn't he?
Yeah.
How's he doing?
Good. Everybody's doing good. My dad was one of them. He was there just found out he had bladder cancer and took chemo treatments on Monday, and Mom and him drove to Birmingham, Alabama to be there.
Wow.
And so that's dedication
awesome.
They love their son, and I love them.
Yeah.
But no, so putting it into the timeline, I'm going to have a circle in this table from all these hand gestures that I'm doing here. But August of 1990 is when we went live on the air. Did I give enough context in the radio show today?
Yeah, I wanted everybody to know
underthehoodshow.com.
what
you can
it
find
looks
us
like
on
today.
any podcast site. Go to wherever you get your podcasts. I don't care where it's at. You'll find us.
Right.
And it's Under the Hood Show.
And you just started doing YouTube within the last year, right?
Year and a half, yeah.
Year and a half.
We're up to about 10,000. We're over 10,000 subscribers now.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
so we're
really
getting there on that. Our podcast, Russ tells me right now, give or take 50,000 people per month are downloading it.
And so, what's the format? What do you do? And then
Let me go back to the story.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of work our way into that because it changed. My mom was out in the neighbor's field, not our own, because having our own wasn't enough.
Wait a second. How do you not like a story that starts off when Mom was out in the neighbor's field?
Driving, some call it a swather, a windrower.
Gets even better.
Cutting alfalfa into rows that you make
like the
bales
beginning
out
of a Disney movie.
It should be. She's writing a book. I'll get to that later. The book is so close to done.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's out there and she's listening to the radio, and I can see it. I have a picture of her with her do-rag on so she doesn't burn her head, and the metal box that my dad made with a flip lid on it because he was too cheap to buy the one from the place that actually made a box to put a radio in.
Sure.
And she's listening to the local AM station, and she has this idea. And the idea was sparked by her going to the auction. At this time, they're already going to car auctions and going to Kansas City to the car auction. They would finish milking and then go to Kansas City to drive to the car auction. 6 hours to Kansas City, by the way, 5.5 if you drive fast. They had a couple of near-death experiences, falling asleep, and anyway, that's all part of the story. I woke up one night praying for my mom and dad, and I found out the next day that they had fallen asleep and drove in the ditch and missed a bridge abutment by just a little bit. Wow. And I'm home, and I woke up praying.
Wow.
And that, anyway, this gives me goosebumps. But when she was there, she would watch the crowd. That was my mom's job. She was watching the crowd just to see who's there, what's going on, because it mattered in the bidding.
Of course, yeah.
And oh gosh, Gary from Sam's Riverside's not here this week. And Gary was a strong buyer.
Yeah.
And if we're going to buy a Trans Am or a Firebird or a Camaro, you had to bid against Gary. And Gary's not here. We're going to buy those cars today. Everybody thought that, though. That's a problem. And Gary was there. He just had somebody else there. He was hiding. But
Smart.
But she would talk to everybody. Social butterfly. She's just wonderful. And she got talking to a guy from Frog's Import Salvage down there. And Frog's Import had a show on a local access cable channel where they would tell about their parts business. And she always thought that was a neat idea. She really never said anything about it to anybody.
It was a podcast before podcast was even a thing.
Yeah, it was they were telling about their thing. And she had that in the back of her head. So she's out there tootling along, steering wheel, levers, running the run. This is custom work, mind you. Did I get that?
Yeah.
They're doing it. She's doing it to make money.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough going on. We got to go do custom work. And my dad kind of pimped her out to do custom farm work.
That's a terrible thing to say about Mom.
I know. But they would laugh if they heard it because that's the way we are.
They will. They'll listen.
That's the way we are.
Yeah.
I haven't told a poop joke yet. But what, that toilet in here, what's going on with that?
I don't know. It's about 6 inches off the ground.
Yeah, he's got a built-in squatty potty right here in this room.
I was wondering if all Canadian toilets were like that.
Mine's not like that.
And then you came in, you go, "Can I use your toilet?" I go, "At your own risk." And you went in there, you came out, and you're like, "Why'd you get the squatty one?" It's literally like 6 inches off the ground.
Okay, sorry. Now we have
like a Turkish.
Now, it is. Now you've been the Shannon Nordstrom experience. But so she's out there and she gets this, all of a sudden, just this flash into her head as she's listening to the radio that, you know what, we should do a radio show. And we could tell about our place so people know we have parts and we have cars for sale. And how long are we right now? My goodness.
We're fine.
Okay.
We're an hour.
All right. So she goes in and tells my dad this idea, tells me this idea. And so my dad goes, well, maybe. Don't know if we don't ask. Once again, we're not scared.
Yeah.
And so my dad has made all these connections through the racetrack. He was also involved in the Sioux Empire Fair Board for the tractor pulls, more horsepower. We love horsepower. And the demolition derbies. We love a crash. We grew up with this stuff. How can we not be crazy?
I know.
And so he went and talked to the guy that always interviewed him. It was the local radio station, KSOO. Wayne Pritchard was the guy. He was the local guy all the farmers listened to. When you got up in the morning, you listened to Wayne Pritchard. All his kids wanted to break the radio because it was just so repetitively weird.
Good morning, Garrett.
Yeah, well, it was Sioux Falls and Kelloland or whatever they called it. But yeah, they went and talked to him, and they steered him to the sales manager. And all of a sudden you find out radio's got many legs to it. It's not just a guy on the radio.
Yeah.
And they start learning about that, and they said, well, we were thinking about doing some radio, and talk shows are getting to be a thing. They were just putting Rush Limbaugh on the air on that station. And they said, we'd like to have an automotive-related show. We've got a landscape show we're thinking about and a garden show. But we talked to the dealers, and they don't want to give up any of their service advisors or anybody to do the show for that period of time for a half hour.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, and so my mom said, she goes, well, we'll do it. And they had to, well, here's what the time's going to cost. Oh, yeah, we got to pay for it. Yeah, that's cost. And so they came to some terms on what it might cost, and then they said, well, who's going to do the show? And my mom says, well, my son can do it. And she had asked me if I would want to do it, and they said, well, what experience does he have? And I'm 19 years old at the time.
Yeah, he talks.
I'm 19 years old at the time. And my mom looked at him, and she said, well, trust me, he can do it.
Yeah.
And they put a 19-year-old kid on the air. And that was the Nordstrom's Cars and Parts Show. That came on first in August of 1990 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Please tell me there's some recordings.
There is.
Yes.
There is. Russ has it, and he makes fun of it all the time because in my prepubescent voice, because I didn't grow up really fast.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
It sounds about the same as when I sat on the announcer's lap at the racetrack when I was 7 and announced, the car's going into the first turn. It's Dave Underberg and Danny Foster. 2 employees that end up being of ours. But
so you started off doing 30 minutes.
Yep.
Was it once a week?
Once a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
What day? Was it a work day? Or
it was
weekend?
a work day. It was a Thursday.
So once a week, Thursday.
Drive down a half hour to the radio show station and do the show. And
what'd you do? Like the first time you turned on did you come in with a plan? Because I
a little bit of a plan, but not a great one.
Yeah.
Just as it is now.
Exactly how it is now.
So we went down there, and they set us up with one of their local disc jockeys, and that was the guy.
Was it just you? Or
just me? No, just me.
So you hit the light and just started talking
just me.
For 30 minutes.
Yep, I introduced myself, and
were you worried that you were going to be able to fill 30 minutes?
A little bit.
And then they
tapped
you on the shoulder and said, hey, it's time to stop?
I can tell you a story related to this later, but I'll tell the story because I can tell it quick, I think. But we had people lined up to maybe call, and we didn't need it. People called.
Oh, it was a call-in show.
It was a call-in show.
Okay, so it wasn't just
people called and asked
from the
questions.
Very beginning, it was a call-in.
And I knew enough. And when I was working the parts counter and selling repairables and talking to people, I learned.
Sure.
I didn't get to do as much because we were so busy selling and doing, but I learned. And when I would meet somebody,
I'd imagine someone come in and they'd tell you all about the problem.
I'd ask them.
I'd
ask them.
That's where you're learning.
I like to learn. I mean, I like to ask questions.
Why are you buying this part?
Yeah, I like. People tell me I ask good questions, but I like to ask questions.
Yeah.
And later in life, I've read books about good leaders ask questions.
Absolutely.
But I ask questions.
That was one of my favorite compliments that my wife gave me at some point in the last few years. We were talking about something, and I asked her, and she said, "You ask really good questions."
Yep.
And I said, "Thanks. I just think it's important." I
JC
wasn't always that way, right? I like any young person, I just thought I needed to give you my opinion. But especially when it comes to anything that resembles a debate, I find that asking questions.
It's so huge.
Asking questions.
I didn't realize it was a thing until I knew it was a thing.
Right.
It was a gift, I realized.
Yeah. Problem solving, asking questions.
Exactly.
Always going in instead of, and I'm sure you've used this in management, right?
I use it all the time.
You think you know what the issue is, what the problem is, what the obstacle is, and if you go in there with a prescribed solution, you're going to miss 30-50% of the situation, but you go in there and you ask questions to make sure you're starting from the right point, and then you You learn so much about, and then a lot of times, as you know, someone will tell you what the problem is, and you can listen to them, and you realize this is what they say the problem is, but the problem is really this.
Exactly. And just recently when we were down in St. Augustine, Florida for the Strategic Advisory Council meeting that you and I did a splendid job leading.
Absolutely.
We got some work to do, but it was okay. But I've always known J.C. Cahill.
Right.
You've interviewed J.C., and I've listened to the podcast. He might talk faster than me, but J.C. is a huge wealth of knowledge. Yeah. Him and I have always known each other, but we've never really known each other. And so at that event, there was just a different group that went out for dinner. Him and I ended up sitting on the end of the table, and we got talking. Everybody else left for dinner. 3 hours later, JC and I are still talking. And the next morning, JC and I met up with each other and we're talking more.
Yeah.
And we both, when we got done, he looked at me, he goes, "You've asked me questions nobody's ever asked me before." And he asked me some questions that nobody dared ask me before because they didn't know me well enough.
Yeah.
But it was really a neat moment just by asking questions.
So here
and kind of unpeeling the onion.
Yeah, here I thought I had a unique experience with Mr. Cahill, and now I learned this is the deal.
It's his trick.
I went to the Iowa show probably 3 years ago. I was at the Iowa show, and JC was doing a session, and I knew of JC Cahill, but I didn't know JC Cahill. And so I thought, I want to get to know this guy. So when he was all done, I walk into the room. He's standing at the front of the room, as is normal. He's got a little crew around him asking questions, and he's talking. And I waited and waited. And when I had a break, I walked up and introduced myself, and we started talking. We ended up, this is going to sound weird. We ended up in the parking lot, sitting in his truck, talking for 3 hours.
Yep.
And then and we became fast friends that day. He'll tell you the same thing.
Exactly, and that's what he told me. He goes,
but I thought it was,
Shannon, he goes, watch
out.
It
was special.
No,
so,
it's
now
not
I
anymore.
learned.
He says, watch out, Shannon. He goes, we're friends now.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Damn it.
He's good. JC, you better be listening to this.
Oh, my gosh.
Love you, JC.
Yeah.
But anyway, asking questions. Yeah. And so I learned. We're back to the radio show. I learned. And so as I was selling parts and talking to these parts men and repairers, they're telling me what's broken, why they need it. To this day, it's my number one training tool. I try to tell my salesmen, ask them why they need the part, because you're going to buy some time and you're going to learn that they may not need the part that they're trying to buy. Yeah. If you got any sort of ability to put that together. So that
you may have heard that story before.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not uncommon that the same thing
But you also have to learn that not let that trick you into thinking that's the answer. So, but early on, I was able to use that. And so people started calling the show. And it went well. They were happy with it. And so this is 1990, and it grows. I do it by myself for 8 years on the station there. Mm-hmm. Different hosts with me and different things. Then we ended up having Russ Evans come into our life, and Russ now I'll just fast forward. He's a 50-50 partner on the radio show, but he's an overly intelligent young man that moved here from Texas. He can figure anything out. And he started dismantling cars for us, and he quickly got bored. We ended up asking if he'd go work in our mechanic shop that we had started, and he needed to work on his social skills because he's just a crazy kid, and he moved here from Texas to get a new start. And when he was there one day, I said, "Hey, Russ," I go, "You got a good voice. You seem to know everything." And I would fact check him, and he was usually right. Yeah. And I said, "Would you want to come down and be on the radio show with me sometime?" I go, "You ever done anything like that?" He goes, "Well, yeah, I was a disc jockey and a board operator at a nightclub many times. Yeah. You know, I do parties and stuff." He goes, "Yeah, that sounds good." He never left. Yeah. And not only did he never leave, he also took some inspiration that I had started to want to syndicate. And he saw this as a path to become something more than even wrenching. And so we went down a road a couple times to try to syndicate. I got one opportunity, a syndicator, good intentions, local syndicator, took us for a ride, ended up in a little bit of a miniature law event of them trying to give us a cease and desist because they didn't have what they said they had to deliver to us. It was kind of a mess.
And so very basically, explain what it means to syndicate.
Syndicate means you take somebody else that has a company that has connections to other markets, other radio stations, and they, under a contractual agreement, whatever that might be, they agree to put you on in other markets.
So they're a distribution
network.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And so we kept our independence, but they were the independent syndicator in between.
I got you.
We had to blow that up. We had to sit on the sidelines for a year to let this fake cease and desist go away. 2 stations never dropped us because she said she had us on 16, and bless her soul, her husband is the one that started it, and he died in a car accident. She was trying to keep it going, and she just didn't have what she thought she did.
Yeah.
And so we waited, and then we started on our own. We've done every bit of this on our own, and it's been from the same methods of Nordstrom's growing were the ways the radio show grew. People that we got to know, we were friendly with us.
Yeah.
As the show got a few more places, people would call us and ask for advice. We were friendly with us. I had a guy in California that asked us for advice, and he ended up having a medical problem. He turned over a network they had built out there to us and had like 40 stations in it.
Wow.
We had a guy that came into our repair shop that worked at local radio at a college in Sioux Falls, loved the show, and he sold bank marketing products door to door to small community banks. And so he could only work at the banks. They would close at 3 o'clock-ish, basically, where there was anybody there to talk to. He'd go out and knock on doors at radio stations for us, and we made a bird dog deal with him to go out and find radio stations.
Wow.
And so this growth took place, and then at one point we had a national syndicator call us, Harris Broadcasting, and they said, hey, we're ready to take you to the next level. Telling us things that Russ and I, our eyes are this big.
Yeah.
And they're like, here's what you got to do. We got to go to a 2-hour show. We got to have room for content. We need more room for advertisers. Blah, 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 blah. You got to convince the radio station. At that time, we had moved to Kello Radio, where we're at now.
You're still doing this at the local radio station.
Yeah, our feed goes live across their radio station yet.
Yeah.
Now, today yet.
No, I know.
But
at the time, you were still going to a studio, a radio
physically,
station.
up until 2021.
Okay, so the studio you're in now is the
very fresh.
Yeah,
we drove every weekend. Russ and I drove into our station. But
did you? No, you didn't.
This Harris Broadcasting Group, they convinced us. We convinced the radio station to give us another hour. We convinced them to put equipment in their racks to do the syndication. We're like another great sales pitch in my life.
Yeah.
But they did it, and it was great. They saw it as a partnership, as it should have been, because they were going to be the home of the nationally syndicated Under the Hood show is what it is at the time. It was switched when we moved to the other radio station group. And by golly, it was going good. Everything was going to work. And Russ says, hey, why don't you call? He goes, I've been doing all this. He goes, why don't you call? Can't remember the first name of the guy, and just make sure we're on track, double check everything we're doing, just get to know him a little bit better. And I said, it's a great idea. I need to do that anyway. So I call the phone. Russ gives me the number. Somebody else answers the phone, and the names escape me right now, but it was his son. And I said, well, is X there? He goes, no, he died last night. And I said,
wait. Was this the guy that was orchestrating your
big syndication? Oh, okay. He was the one that was going to take us to another level.
Was that Harris?
Harris Broadcasting.
Okay. I'm
Harris,
just trying to
Harris USA.
Gotcha.
And this is his son. And I said, well, what's going to happen? And he said, well, my dad had always told me that if he passed away, he goes, I'm an attorney, and he said that he just wanted to blow it up. He didn't want to do anything else with it. We're not going to sell it. He goes, we don't have anything to do.
So just like that,
just
your
like that,
opportunity
it was gone. It literally died,
Oh.
and so it wasn't supposed to be. Got it another plan.
Yeah.
We were a little frustrated,
Sure.
but then we just kept going. Hand to hand combat. We've syndicated all by ourselves to 250 stations, and then with the advent of podcasting. Obviously that's a future we realize, and so the podcast has been great. We get people from all over the world, literally, that call the show from the podcast. We have people. It freaks me out when they call the radio show. I'm telling you, Vince. They say, "I've listened to all your back episodes." Russ had like 900 episodes he put up.
Wow.
I think is the number. And there's people that listen to all of them. They binge listen to me. How can they do that? It's not just me, but I say that because we're here.
Yeah, you put me in an awkward spot to answer that question.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, there's a point of Nordstrom's where you get too much of us. But this is so this thing's just going crazy. So my mom's idea from the Windrower has become this nationally syndicated show, which now is its own entity within Nordstrom's Automotive Inc.
Yeah.
And it has a gentleman that lives in Atlanta that sells advertising, and we sell our own advertising also. The Automotive Media Experts Group is the gentleman out of Atlanta. He contacted us. He used to sell advertising for the Carey Brothers. Around the House was a show that was on way back in the day.
Okay.
And he made his own little Automotive Media Experts Group, and he represents us and 4 other car talk shows around the country. And then he goes to sponsors and sells them a package, and we're the biggest player in that package.
Nice.
And then he takes a commission and sells the advertising. So we have like Clarios, who makes all the AMG batteries, Right now, we just got a deal with Advanced Auto Parts. There's just different. We've had different players throughout the years. Peak antifreeze, Peak headlights. I'm not reading the liners right now, but these are all people that when we produce the produced show gets all those inserted into it. When you see it on YouTube, you don't hear that because the YouTube feed on the full show is the live show. Is the live cut.
That's why I've watched that a few
so
times.
It's became its own industry, and within our industry. I want to say thank you to the Schroeder family. Car Dash Part has been a sponsor for quite a long time, and we get to tell a lot of people to go check Car Dash Part to find a recycler near them.
Let me tell you about that. I was a very early adopter when I was with Progressive Insurance in the very beginning when Car Dash Part first came out, and like I said, I was an early adopter. I used to encourage my team to use it to write the estimates that we were writing and things like that. And then even today, when I'm on Facebook, when I'm on Facebook and I see somebody will inevitably put into either the regular feed or maybe a community Facebook group I'm a part of, you know how those go.
Yep.
And they'll say, hey, I need to find a part. And I just typed car-part.com. Of course, it hyperlinks it in my comment right away. I do that probably once or twice a week. And it's amazing to me. I mean, I'm glad I could do it. They're great partners with ARA, and I'm glad I could do it. But I think sometimes I scratch my head and go, how come everybody doesn't know about this? Like the consumer side, like obviously industry side.
Well, it's such a great link to the public to our merchandise that we have that's so great that's available.
Yeah.
I want to kind of jump back. We kind of went down that radio path quite a ways, but there's some really important things that I think that you wanted to ask me that I want to tell you.
Okay.
When you were talking about the certification committee, and I've been doing that for over 20 years.
Yeah.
The reason I've done that so long, and at some point I got to get an exit on that, but the reason I've done it so long is because it's such a passion for me. That program, the Certified Auto Recycler program, is what Nordstrom's used as our blueprint and our roadmap to take this repairable business that I've described and figure out what we needed to do to be a professional automotive recycling facility. We thought we knew, but we didn't know. And that program, you know, we went to these regional shows located on locations, upper Midwest. We'd go to Des Moines every once in a while. My dad got involved in the IT shows when they were a thing. That's weird that he never went to an ARA, but that was kind of the other place. He didn't go there. He loved the IT shows. He loved the rebel side.
Yeah, I went to the IT shows.
And so, but anyway, my wife and I, when we got married, we went to Denver in 1996. We drove the 1995 Repairable Riviera Supercharged that I'd convinced her that was a young executive's car, but that must have been a lie. She still picks on me for that out there. And when I got there, I saw this big world. I saw the ARA show in Denver, 1996. Okay. I mean, my eyes are like...
You said when you got married, I thought you meant for like your honeymoon.
No. This was just, we took a drive.
We're going to ARA.
No, we took a drive. We can drive to this one. 10 hours to Denver. We take a drive. Have fun in the car. And we had a great trip. But I get there and it's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I talk to people to this day that come to their first ARA show. I make a point at lunch to go find somebody that I can tell hasn't been there before and try to sit down with them and talk to them. Because I remember that feeling that I had like, this is crazy. There's this many people that are involved in what I do. And so I go to the sessions, and I'm eyes wide open, and I'm hearing Greg Freeman, who at the time was a certification chair, and Art Hebrer, he was from the Virginia area. He's not in the industry anymore, but I heard them telling about the Certified Auto Recycler program, and I went and got a pamphlet, and I said, this is it. This is it. We're doing this. Yeah. And I got back, and I told my dad and some of the other people working there, we're going to do this. We're going to get this done. And I made a goal of getting it done by 1998 because we had some problems. We had tire piles. We had some engines that we always took care of the land as farmers. But, you know, we didn't think that you had to have a roof over where the core engines were at. We just made sure that the funny color water got stopped before it got anywhere. Right. Yeah, you know, that's the truth. I mean, but it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. Yeah. But by then we had started building some buildings, and we put overhangs on them where we could stuff the core motors underneath, because in the Certified Auto Recycle program, so they had to be on an impervious surface with shielding from the rainwaters. Mm-hmm. And we're like, we never thought of it. You can only have so many tires. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And so we used that program to get our business in line and to understand things we weren't thinking about. We never thought about it because we were selling alternators and selling cars and doing our thing. And that roadmap was so important to us. By 1999, we got on certification, and I got the picture of getting the certified plaque at the convention. That was a huge point of pride for our company. Didn't know what we were going to do with it. We just know we wanted to do it because we knew it would make us better. Yeah. Same as it is today. It'll make you better.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people, so we did a virtual tour. We started doing virtual tours. We haven't done any in a few years. I really would like to get back to it. It was something that was born out of COVID, but we started doing virtual tours, and we did a virtual tour of your facility. I think it's at least 3, maybe 4 episodes. About
4 episodes.
Is it 4? Like,
yeah, John will come out, and that
20,
was
30 minutes.
We poured a lot of time into that.
We did, and I think and a lot of people have watched
that.
It
has been very viewed. I get so many people that tell me, "Hey, I've been watching this one over and over about your fluid draining."
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, once again, creepy. But
but I think it's been almost accidentally one of the best resources ARA has produced, and like I said, I would love to do more of it. But what I'm getting at is, I think people look at that. They're looking at Nordstrom's 2.0,
2018, brand new.
It was 2018. We shot that in 2021 or 2022, yep. Right? And they're looking at the results of years of work.
Yes.
And I think what a lot of people will look at, I'm sure you've heard this. They're like, I can't do that. Like, that's so huge. And so everything you were just saying, I think, is so important for people to realize that is not where you started.
Oh gosh, no.
You started probably very similarly to most recyclers now, who would watch that and be discouraged because it looks so great and they feel like they're miles from being there. But the point is, they can use the certification program just like you did to start and work their way toward that.
And that is why I'm so passionate to promote the program. That is why I'm so passionate right now to be the president and give back, because all those people that I met at all those shows, mm-hmm. I asked them a ton of questions. We talked about asking questions. Yeah. I was the pest. But they saw me buying into what they were doing. We were making the moves and paying attention and doing things. We weren't just showing up and asking the same questions. We were doing things. And people could see that. And I had so many memorable moments with people in this industry that taught me things. You'll hear me say about a bus ride with Harry Halupsuk from the Biltmore to the Biltmore from the Charlotte convention, riding on a bus. I sat next to him on the bus and just picked his brain, and he was so good about it. Yeah. Down Bourbon Street for a mid-year leadership conference with Jerry Anderson from AAA Auto Parts. When he looked me in the eye and he said, "Shannon," he goes, "You're too darn smart to be selling door handles." He goes, "You need to get out from behind the counter and start running your business and not working in your business." You hear that all the time, but It took a mentor that I believed in to tell me that, to have the confidence that I could do it. And so we're learning all this stuff. We're using the certification program. We're meeting all these people, and by now I'm at awe of other people in the industry that can do what they do. And so that comment you just made is where I'm at now. Now I kind of see myself as a different version of Harry that can help other people, and I want to give back. Harry was a past president. Yeah. I hope he gets a chance to hear this. I mean, because I've told him in person, but those guys meant so much to me and gave me so much to look at. My son Riley was on a tour of their facility when he was 4 months old. He was in our arms, going through a tour of John's Auto Parts. So that certification program gave us the path, gave us the thing. I got it done in 1999. In 1999, the Locator magazine was a big deal, and we got a phone call from someone representing an auto manufacturer, and they said, "We are interested in finding someone to help us with non-conforming vehicles in the middle of the country."
What's a non-conforming vehicle?
That's the best I can say on the air. A vehicle that has certain things with it that it can't be resold, and they want that car off the road.
Gotcha.
And they said that we started with the list of certified auto recyclers, and we want to come talk to some people. At the time, I was one of the only ones in the Midwest that had done the program.
Wow.
We had a corn planter in a machine shed that when they said they were coming to visit, this is the first time I made a 10X move. I said, "Yes, come visit us." And I was like, "Ah!"
Now what?
Now what? But we had people in our business that stepped up and helped us. They bought into what we were trying to do because we included them in everything. I just listened to Jerabenta talking about including your people in your vision.
Right.
We've done that from the beginning without even realizing it should have been in a book.
Well, that's in the core. That's in the core of who you are. Your father and your mother were always building relationships, and I don't imagine they did it because they saw a strategy to gain something other than getting to know somebody.
Right. Now they didn't show the books like they talk about.
No,
now.
I get
we
it.
do some
I
of that
get
stuff
it.
now,
but they were always
were very
investing
close to the vest, but knew everybody.
Yeah.
And so these people helped us. My dear manager Brad Gullickson that's passed. He just passed recently, but he helped me so much with Michigan trivia that I could use and all these things when these people came.
What was this comment about the corn planter?
Oh, the corn plant. I'm going to that. We had to hustle. In a week and 3 days, we emptied that farm building, concreted the floor because it was a dirt floor.
Oh my gosh!
And put up pallet racking with transmissions on it.
Oh
so we actually had a little bit more of a warehouse, and because we wanted to put on a good show.
Yeah.
And we knew and had confidence in ourselves as people, but we just we were not quite sure what we were going to show them.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. And you've had that relationship
since 1999. We've had that relationship with ourselves and other. Now it's the VRG group, and once again, that group got formed out of certified auto recyclers that were family businesses that had gotten to know each other through Hollander, through ARA, and we all kind of converged together to form a group called the VRG group.
What's VRG stand for?
Vehicle Recyclers Group.
Okay.
And the core mission of that group was to work with this program across the whole
that's what everybody's got in common.
across the whole country.
Yeah.
And so, but that's now expanded into OEM surplus that we have for sale through our groups. And it's just been incredible because we also spun that off into VRG LLC that a few of us kept going. And we have shipping software that we created.
I've talked about that. Yeah.
A gentleman by the name of Don Parton, who was at Stricker Auto Parts, is just a wonderful, smart gentleman that came from corporate, from Ball. Is it who makes the jar? Ball.
Yeah.
Canning jars. And he was a big business guy that was friends of the Strickers. Him and Johnny coached base. I think him and Johnny coached baseball together for their kids. But anyway, he started coming to our meetings when the VRG would get together, and he started challenging us all about numbers and bringing spreadsheets. And we're like, who is this guy? And I don't like what he's telling me. But together, we started forming some products. We started forming some software, doing some things. Yeah. And so that was just another evolution, but that all started because I was a certified auto recycler.
So let's.
That's why I'm so passionate about it.
And do you see? This is kind of a loaded question because I kind of know the answer because we work together on it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask for the sake of the podcast and the discussion. Where do you see? Do you still think these opportunities exist for the certification program and those involved in the certification program?
I hope, and I hope is not a plan. You hear that often, but I really do hope that these years of work will culminate in the chicken and the egg. There are opportunities that if we can just get the right people in the room to understand that there's a core group of people willing to do things the right way, you can have this. And that's where the people that will say, well, I don't need to worry about that because there's no return on investment. I'd challenge that. If you leverage it the right way, you can make it just better for your business and your people internally. If you get them to buy into it, that we're going to do this and maintain it. But you and I both know of a current opportunity that's going to be available for people that are going to be involved in the new quality compliance program.
Look at that. I'm so proud.
Like a child, like a dad and a child. But the quality compliance program, which is the new joint venture between ARA and URG, with ARA's certification program as the base and the core of it, and then taking it to another level with the quality assurance.
Oh, you were doing so good.
This is a description, not the term.
Okay.
With a quality assurance program called the quality compliance program. I danced around that.
That was you backstepped that.
And then you can become a CARES, a Certified Auto Recycler of Excellence member.
Yes.
And we have a vendor that is ready to use this program in a pilot.
Yep.
And we're going to have to fast track some people into the program to get that pilot started. But very exciting. Yeah. Very exciting. Yeah. And now we're up here in Ontario, and we're in rooms I was invited into to listen to conversations that they're having. They have the insurance people in the room. Canada's a little different animal the way it works, but the insurance people are in the room, and they're talking about the way recycled parts usage needs to be increased. They're at 5-6%, and they want to get it to 10%. They want to get it to 12%. Chris Douglas is there and talking about how they used a program like this down in Australia. I'm sure you guys talked about it on the podcast.
We did. And
where they moved it to 25%.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job.
And one of the things I got out of him yesterday that I got to tell you this right now, never hit my radar. All right, if you raised recycled parts usage in the insurance claims business to 25%, who's the first person that's freaked out?
The collision repairer.
Well, they're freaked out a lot, but the OEM. Because all of a sudden they're like, oh, I just lost that market share.
Right.
What hit me on the head when he said it was, no, you're looking at it the wrong way. Collision repairers need to repair more cars because they're losing the cars right now to total loss.
That's right.
The cars are going out of their door, and they're mad about it. The total loss thresholds are dropping and dropping and dropping.
Yep.
If they can fix more cars with alternative quality, recycled original equipment parts, they're going to fix more cars. If the fix rate goes up 10% because of it, the OEMs are going to sell more parts in the long run because they got 80% of the parts on the estimate.
Right.
So in the long run, they're going to sell more parts.
Auto recycling plays a critical role in today's automotive supply chain, and the Automotive Recyclers Association is leading that charge. ARA equips recyclers with training, certification, advocacy, and business tools needed to operate safely, stay compliant, and lead the industry into the future. From EV handling and education to cost-saving programs and national advocacy, ARA helps recyclers stay ahead of the change. Membership means credibility, connection, and a seat at the table shaping what comes next. Lead the profession, protect your future. Join the Automotive Recyclers Association at a-r-a.org.
Because of it, the OEMs are going to sell more parts in the long run because they got 80% of the parts on the estimate. Right. So in the long run, they're going to sell more parts, but you got to convince them of that.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be that math is interesting.
The other thing is the insurance. So I was at the Industry Leadership Summit for IAA in Florida a few weeks ago, and
thank you for doing that, by the way.
It was my pleasure. It was a great experience.
It worked out perfect.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and IAA was very gracious. And one of the people that was talking, I think, was from CCC. He was a numbers guy, and I wish I could remember his name. But he was talking. To his credit, he made spreadsheets interesting. I sat and listened, and it was typically
Brian Mandel with Mitchell can do the same thing. He's here and spoke today.
If you would have told me that, I would have said that's going to be tough. But I was so intrigued, possibly partly because of my experience in the insurance industry, and he was kind of talking about that. One of the key things that he said that I thought was interesting was for the insurance companies, when they total loss a car, the chance that they lose that customer is skyrockets.
That came up yesterday too.
It skyrockets.
And then we also had
so it's not only in the interest of the collision repairer, but it's also in the interest of the insurer. And as you just pointed out, in the interest of the OEs to sell more parts, all because if they could use more recycled parts. But as I discussed yesterday, and I discussed it with Chris, and I discussed it with Greg Condon when I talked to him on the podcast, the trick is preserving the margin for the collision repairer, right? Because as we, they sell they buy a $1,000 part from the OE, they get 20% markup on that.
No, they actually get like a 30% mark down.
Right.
They're making $300.
But it's you're right. They're making $300.
A true $300.
But then if they buy the recycled part, we know that that's going to be considerably less, and so they're
probably a give or take 20% mark up.
If we could figure out and establish. We'd have to include the insurance companies would have to be included and go along with this. If we could preserve their margin, the insurance companies are still paying less for the part. The collision repairer is getting an OE part instead of an aftermarket part. And they're preserving their margin, like you just pointed out, which I hadn't thought of. Right? The OEs are going to sell more parts because they got 80% of the parts on the estimate, and more cars are going to be fixed. And the customer is happy because they didn't total their car.
I hope I work long enough in this industry to see that happen, because that is the only way I think it's one of the only ways that gets fixed next to a government mandate. But if in that same scenario there was a collision shop person in the room that said, he goes, and I use the term flapping of the wings, making noise. a lot of that would go away from collision shops if the margin was there for them. He said, if I had the margin, he said, I fix OE parts right now.
Yeah.
I fix aftermarket parts right now. If they're there and it's minor and I got my margin, I grin and bear it and we keep moving.
So when I worked at the collision repair, people think when you get an OE part or even a brand new aftermarket part, it's an undamaged part. And most of the time that's true.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. But it's not uncommon.
No, you got to get an edge feathered to make it match.
Or something, it happens.
Yep, it does. And you can't just keep boomeranging them because the body shops are measured to the nth degree on cycle time. They got keys to keys. They got to turn these cars.
Yes, I know.
And so that measurement period, when the collision, here's two things in the room yesterday that popped out. The collision repair is saying the noise would go away, most of it, because I think it was fair to say quality is being used as a scapegoat sometimes for the lack of margin. That's not a novel idea. No. I'm saying it on camera, but quality gets used as a scapegoat for lack of margin because the shop is not incentivized to make it work. Right. They're incentivized to not make it work.
Exactly.
They're de-incentivized.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting to hear him say that, and that'd be awesome. And then the other part of the puzzle was we had two OEMs in the room for another reason, and here in Canada, because of trade things that we're not always real popular here right now with some of the decisions our country has made. There is Chinese EVs are now being welcomed into Canada. And so we had I'll call them domestic OEs, raising their hand in the rooms saying the same thing when you brought up the thing about brand loyalty.
Yeah.
They said if that car gets totaled, they also know they got a good chance of losing out on a low-cost, now Chinese EV that might come into the market or whatever it might happen to be. So that same thing you just said was said yesterday by an insurance person in the room and by an OE. The numbers when a car gets totaled are very scary for the insurance company and the OE that was the brand of car they were driving. That brand loyalty might change on that event.
Yeah,
that insurance company brand loyalty might change on that event.
Oh, statistics say it will.
And so fixing the car is better. And
the consumer wants it.
And just one last thing on this, because I can see it, because the seat I'm in probably, I'm selfish, but if the margin were there and the noise went away, all of a sudden the shops aren't making the noise to the insurance companies. The insurance companies are probably more likely to promote the recycled parts for the sustainability value that we've proven with
the WPI study.
Thank you for saying that because I probably would have got it wrong. But we can tell you the carbon equivalent savings of using parts. Not just talk about it being green. We have statistics.
Right.
Roger and his team from CarPart are already putting those numbers onto invoices and statements that can be delivered to body shops to show them the carbon savings equivalents that they've bought by buying parts from our industry. Yeah, those pieces, if they can all come together, it's good for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was even I was having a conversation with CCC last year, and they look at the collision repair and their use of recycled parts, and they're actually discussing grading based on their carbon footprint. How many recycled parts do they put on the estimate and use, and so that's an interesting conversation. If we can, if the pressure, so to speak, comes from 360 degrees to use what makes sense, which is an OE part, we both know is a recycled part, then we might just move the needle on this.
Very much so. I'm going to go back to one more thing.
Okay, and then we're going to start to land this plane.
This plane's flying. We talked about certification. Yeah. What a passion it was. Why I'm ARA president, why I finally raised my hand. I'd been asked a number of times. I've always wanted to do this. Yeah. I've always wanted to do this.
It was hard. Scott Robertson
Scott finally wrestled me down, and
he literally wrestled.
Well, that wasn't when he got me to say yes, but his relationship with mine was the one that finally got me to pause long enough instead of just saying.
Which makes sense. A guy from Boston and a guy from South Dakota.
But that's all industry relations. The association, getting to know people, it's been great. I wanted to give back. But the other piece of this that I wanted to just make sure and get across, you talked about family in the business. And we told a crazy story about how I grew up. And all of a sudden, I'm 56 years old, and I'm looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I got to make a plan. What's my plan? I know I've been making one. My wife and I have got a trust set up, and things are kind of okay, moving where they're moving. I've had consolidators approach us, and that's not what I want to do. They've looked at us, and I haven't got past the first meeting in the hotel room. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I'm afraid if I knew what they would tell me,
it'd rattle around in your head.
It'd rattle around. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
And my dad, my mom and dad built their home on the hill overlooking what we built.
It's not an option.
And it's just not good.
Yeah.
And I love my employees, and I want to make sure that they get treated the way I want to treat them. And may not be perfect, may not be good. But now when I look in the mirror now, sorry, that was a little bit more. I think back to what my parents did with me. And the advice they were getting from their three-legged stool, they call it, was the banker, the insurance or the accountant, and an attorney that my dad had met. I didn't even go into that. He wrote a state law for damage titles that got him involved in politics too. And I ended up having to go do some of it because he got prostate cancer and I had to finish a lot of it.
Oh, this is recent?
No, this is back in 87.
This is his second bout?
Yeah, he's been dealing with cancer since my son was born. Okay. That was when he announced he had prostate cancer the first time. That was Riley was born in 1998.
He announced that when your son was born? Kind of attention hog, huh?
Yeah, took the buzz out of him, but he just found out. And so Riley's going to be 27 here. Is he 27 now? I know, 1998, December 1st. But I think back to things that happened and what my mom and dad were doing and watching. They were watching me. They saw the passion I had. They saw the knowledge I was gaining. That three-legged stool of the banker, the attorney that they had met through all this writing of laws. They didn't need an attorney otherwise. They were all telling them, guys, you got something going on here. All of a sudden, you guys have got millions involved, not hundreds of thousands. It's not the Tupperware container underneath the bed, Art and Marie, anymore. This is an entity. You've built an entity.
Right. And
they said, you need to make a plan. And those people, Evan Ingebretson, Paul East, Charlie Dorothy, those were our local. You have each one of you listening have your Evan Ingebretson, banker, Charlie Dorothy, attorney, bless his soul, he died of a heart attack. Paul East, Charlie Dorothy, attorney. Those people were guiding us, and we were listening. We had other bank people we met, gave us advice. We listened. We didn't just push it away. And my dad, and he's the one I have to give credit to, he let me run. And this is what I see happen way too often in our industry is the first or second generation, mostly the first generation, doesn't want to let go. Don't get me wrong, my dad doesn't want to let go. But he also saw the value in letting me run. And he had to let me run while I still had the energy to run. And if he wouldn't have done that, now, the reason I brought up the prostate cancer, he thought that was going to be worse than it was at the time. And some of the decisions that we were making with that three-legged stool, he accelerated them a little bit because of concerns for his health and not wanting to leave the family in a bad position.
Sort everything out.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, he gave me more authority and let me have it. But that when I look back at that and I think of family business transitions, that was so important because he let me have the reins when I had the energy to ride that horse hard. And I'm still pulling them.
Right.
You know, I love it. I love what I do. And I'm in my prime yet. I always tell my wife. I'm in my
Does
prime.
she agree?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. But and imagine an easy mistake to make if you have the foresight and the will to turn the reins over to that generation is to not grab them back. Because I got to imagine there are times when he's looking, he's like,
no, gas pedal, brake pedal is what we got.
Yeah,
him and I, and we'll do it to each other.
Yeah.
And when I look at that it was so hard for him now, and it's still hard for him to this day.
Sure.
He kind of runs a little bit loose at the U-pull it, and it can drive the guys crazy because he kind of he's got domain there yet, he thinks. And but it's okay because he's smart as a whip, and what he sees, I wouldn't want to. I'm not there all the time. He sees things I don't see. But I've just seen it too many times where either the second generation hasn't been allowed soon enough, and then they're they don't have the passion that they did.
Yeah,
it's late,
or they're trying to work through it after a crisis.
Right. Yeah, and that's what just happened with my son and his wife's family. But the other piece of the puzzle is that sometimes that second generation isn't equipped, and that's what I've heard. You hear that in seminars all the time. that's what, if you really have your eye on the ball, you have to be able to make sure that that person is equipped, or else you're going to put them in a bad position that is going to make them fail because they may not be equipped for that role. And so it's really important that you get some other people involved to give you a fair assessment of that. And this three-legged stool could see clearly that
they're not emotionally attached.
They had a winner
that
was willing to do this, and not only do it, take it to another level. Our banker had made us put guesses in an envelope what we thought our corporate revenue would be, and I don't remember what year it was. And this is new corporation, and Nordstrom's is 1995, incorporated in South Dakota, even though it started in 1969 with the wreck pickup.
Yeah.
It was, I guessed, $3 million of corporate revenue. My dad guessed like 1.7. My mom guessed I have the envelope.
Yeah.
And it was a $5 bet, and we were 3.2. And I won, and I've always had vision to see where we could go, and they recognize that. So now my son, here I am, 56 years old, and I got to wrap this up, but this is important, I think, too. My son went to college for business at University of South Dakota. He did things in high school that kept him away from the business much. He ran cross country. Mm-hmm. He was a basketball player. He gamed. We weren't good parents. We didn't kick him out of the basement enough. But he has skills now that I don't possess. His girlfriend he met at college, Tegan and Riley, now married just last year, they called me one day, and I was getting ready to go on a snowmobile trip. I love to go fast on a snowmobile. I hope that's not my demise someday. And they called me, and I was just getting ready to leave, and Riley said, he goes, "We have a situation, we have a problem," and I could hear his now wife just literally wailing in the background. Mm-hmm. And when she was wailing, Riley said, "We had an accident," and I expected to hear car accident, somebody broke a leg in the hospital. Yeah. She said, "No, Tegan's dad died scuba diving," and him and her brother had went out for a morning excursion with a private guide. They were in Costa Rica, and Riley had got invited to go with on the family getaway. He had bought into a giveaway from a vendor. He was an underground construction guy. He had built up a business with 15 people called McDirt in the western side of South Dakota. And Richard, I never got to meet in person. We missed him at our Dakota Days Festival at the college twice for different reasons. Never got to talk to him in person. Had talked to him on the phone. Now, the guy that I'm pretty sure was going to be Riley's father-in-law at some point has died suddenly. And so my son decides he's got his first big boy job out of college, because I always told him, go get other experiences if you want to come back and work in the family business. I want you to do other stuff. Right. I don't want you to just come right into this. I want you to know that you want to do this. But he says, down the road a little bit, we had to sort through a bunch of stuff. He says, I want to go out and help Denise and Tegan and Marin and Riker and the family with this family business. And they tried hard. They worked hard. He learned to do underground pipe fitting, run excavators, and do all this stuff. And they were trying to help Mom keep it going. They eventually found out that probably wasn't the best thing to do. And so about 2 years, they wound that down. And during that process, he called me one night and he said, "Dad," he goes, "I think the time is now." And he goes, "I don't want to see what happened here happen with what our family has built without me being more involved." He said, "The time is now." And I said, "Are you sure?" And it's the same thing I said to my mom. I said, "This is a crazy race." I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm sure." And so now, I guess his first area convention was Reno. I took him there, and he's learning. And I'm judging. I'm right now, my parents, looking in the mirror to see, what do I have here? Yeah. And he's got a lot of skills I don't have, and they're awesome. Yeah. And I'm excited about that. Our employees are excited to see there's a third generation there. It gives the employees confidence that if he can perform well, they're gaining confidence that this family entity that we have so much fun with, because we have fun with the employees as much as we can, even though it's hard sometimes. Right. But this family entity has a chance for a third generation. Nothing has been given to him I want to ask, how do you manage that perception of, here he comes with the last name,
he's, you know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I know exactly what you mean.
Whole...
Vince, we could talk for hours. The gentleman that was my dad's key man when I came back eventually quit because of the boss's son. And,
because of you.
Yeah. And it probably wasn't so much that he hated me. Not at all. Danny and I got along just wonderful. Matter of fact, he came to a recent open house. I invited him, and we talked for a long time, and it was pretty cool. He went on to have another great career and other stuff. But Danny eventually left, and I was showing what I could do, and it didn't match up kind of with the perception of what my dad thought, was going on. It was okay. And I don't know, I'm saying that carefully because it was just timing too.
Sure.
It was God's timing too. But I had my son come in. I said, Riley, you're going to work every job in the place. I said, literally, you're going to do it. And I said, and when we're done, you're going to help me build something that I've never been able to get done, and you're going to help me build the Bible of Nordstrom's on every standard operating procedure that's scattered in this department and this department. We're going to bring this all together to our Bible of Nordstrom's on how it operates.
Right.
And when you're done, not only are you going to be the most knowledgeable person about everything that happens around here, you can decide if this is still interesting to you after that. And we're going to have a better training mechanism. We're going to have a better truth serum when somebody says, when the herd changes the procedures, we can go back to and say, no, this is how we're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And so he's putting that all together, and we're a year and a half into it. And I asked him the other day, I go, what do you think? He goes, quit asking me. I'm having fun.
Oh, good.
And he's getting the respect of the employees through this process, it seems. And I'm excited for that. But that's kind of our process we're doing right now.
That's a tricky road to navigate.
Yeah, and he's got the right attitude. He's got a good nature to him. He's not me. He can have just as much fun in hospitality rooms, not more. but he is not me with his personality. He's probably closer wired to my wife. She's a little more reserved, but she's watching what's happening and she's understanding everything. But when she gets going, watch out. When he gets going, watch out.
Yeah.
And I get so many compliments back about him, and I don't think they're brown nose into the boss. They're just generally just like his nature and how he does things. So I'm very optimistic that he's going to like that, and then we can start making plans for what that looks like. I've got the two other kids. A middle daughter, Madison, and her husband, Max, A-plus players. They're out in California making their way. My daughter, Ava, A-plus player. Yeah. If they ever want to get back involved, I'd like to keep that available for them too.
Sure.
But we got to see what that timeline looks like. Yeah. Like with my sisters and I, my sister's path went one way,
right. Yeah.
and she was still helping a little bit with data entry and things, but the growth of the business, the main growth of the business entity of Nordstrom's was under my watch with my dad and I. I was a second generation that grew up with the first generation at the same time.
Yeah.
I can almost say I was first generation, but I wasn't. My mom and dad took the huge risks. They took the big decisions. They made 10X moves before books were written about 10X moves.
Yeah.
Not realizing it. When I decided to build Nordstrom's 2.0, I told that at my keynote at the ARA the one year. That was my 10X move. And that's when I literally pushed my mom and dad to the side, not physically, but literally, and said, no. They thought I was crazy to even consider it, that we'd tear down buildings and start from scratch in the middle.
Gosh, from a biblical perspective, that's hard to defend.
Yeah.
Because they literally teach you not to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just told them, I said, I want to do this, and I want this to be part of my legacy, and I don't want you to have to do anything with it. I don't want you to sign a single piece of paper that has to do with the responsibility for what money I'm going to borrow and what I'm going to do this. And that will be my passion, to put the key in the door every morning and make sure it fits.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to make you proud. And and they thought I was crazy, and they were very, 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 very much not wanting me to do it, because we had never borrowed money. Everything was piece to piece to piece to piece to piece that you did it. That's why the office had 32 doors on it in the old building.
Yeah.
Because you just kept adding on as you could afford it, a three-sided wall, a three-sided office, and you go up another level because it was getting too far into the hillside.
Yeah.
And so all those pieces were like, okay, so now that was the beginning of Nordstrom's 2.0. And I just want to define that a little bit, because it was truly Nordstrom's 2.0. And now today, my dad can't get enough people there to give him tours of Nordstrom's 2.0.
Yeah.
And the more I get the note paid down, the happier he is, because he doesn't have to worry about it. Because I knew whether they signed the paper or not, they were going to worry about it just as much.
Well, they're parents.
You cut them right now, it bleeds Nordstrom's. That's what they know.
Yeah.
That's what they
did.
Whole life. It's their whole life.
Yeah.
My mom doesn't want to be there. doesn't want to not be there.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
That story's so good.
As we're wrapping up.
We can land the plane somewhere around there.
I know, and there's still so much I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about how you weave your faith into your job and the balance of being a business owner and seeing it as a ministry as much as it is a business.
Yeah, the PTLA is on our business because it's praise the Lord always. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 is what we base that off of. That was the Bible verse that my mom and dad claimed when they became Christians. Mm-hmm. My dad put it on the back of the Ford tractor that's now in our lobby that him and his brother built with a V8 Mustang engine and an 8N 1951 Ford tractor to push race cars as a safety vehicle at the racetrack. He put PTLA on the drawbar as a new Christian to let people know that he was different. Yeah. And they had to guess what it was because he wouldn't tell them. And at the end of the racing season, David Renley, the fire chief for the Sioux Falls Fire Department, our biggest city that's right near us, came up and he said, Art, he goes, I know what it is. He said, it's praise the Lord always. He goes, I've noticed you're different too. And that was the beginning of why PTLA is on everything. It's not parts, tires, labor, assessment. It's praise the Lord always. And so we do intertwine our faith. I pray at the beginning of our employee meetings. We want to give good kind vibes to people, if you want to call it that.
No, I don't like calling it that, but
no, but it's just me. Well, it's the vibes of faith. I want them to feel the vibes of our faith.
I get it, and I get it, and you started something that I know Jonathan has implemented at M&M. You have a chaplain on staff.
We're going to land the plane yet. Yes,
I know, but there's so much.
No, we do have a chaplain. We started that corporate care. They came to me.
Don't talk to you at all.
No, I turned them away a number of times, but I didn't want to farm out our prayers because people would come into our office and we'd talk to them and counsel them. And then my wife's the one that finally said, she goes, Shannon, you think your employees really want to talk to the boss about their problems? Yeah. She said, they're only coming to you when it's a crisis. And this when I was deliberating this. And so now they come in, and on Tuesday they spend half a day with our staff. They don't report to me.
Is it more than one person?
They've got a couple different chaplains that come in. Okay. And they just go out and they have free reign to talk to our staff. We have a prayer room where they can go to if they need to, the upper room, and they can meet with people. And it's not just trying to convert people to Christianity. Not at all. It's just being kind and letting the light of the Lord shine in the room.
Offering hope.
And giving them hope, 100%. And being able to counsel people through what might be a divorce, financial struggles. And he can point them to Lutheran social services or some other methods that they've got in their basket to be able to help them. And so we intertwine that. I mean, the example is how you lead. And we lead by example. I've been doing an employee meeting. I listened to Jared talk down there. I've been doing an employee meeting for almost 30 years. I didn't even get to DJ Harrington. I met DJ Harrington in Minneapolis. DJ is a dear mentor of mine, and I hope he listens to this. I've done a podcast with him.
I would love to get him on the podcast. I wanted to talk about him. I wanted to talk about Kenai.
Yeah,
DJ
Harrington is one of my favorite mentors where I met at a charity auction. But he's the one that told me to do odd appointments at quarter of the hour, weird times. So 7:14 in the morning, the first Tuesday of the month, we have an employee meeting, done it for 30 years. It's not a chew-out session. It's a positive session. If I got up in front of that meeting for 30 years and dropped F-bombs and yelled at everybody, and just imagine what the culture of Nordstrom's would be.
Sure.
But now instead, you get up and you lead with a positive light. You put, we call it Kenai from him. Yeah. It's constant never-ending improvement. And you put that in line to say, hey, team, these are the things we got to work on. Here's our learning opportunities. Not that, John, I can't believe you did that. Yeah. Now, that happens sometimes with middle management, and I got to iron it out. But we got to be able to say, hey, no, we're going to learn from this. We're going to get better.
Not just with mistakes. I think one of the most important things about Kenai is even when you create something that works, and you feel successful and proud about it.
Don't settle.
Don't settle, right? Yeah. Don't just check the box and go,
level up.
I just completed that task. Okay, maybe you did, but is it the best version of that result that it could possibly be?
That's what's getting harder for me as I get older. I'm going to tell you this right now. When our management group that I've formed, come up with ideas, it is definitely, I can see where my dad was at. It gets harder to change that because it's like, that's going to take a lot, but.
I find that you have to that the balance is in somebody creates something, they bring it to you, a solution or whatever it is, and you go, okay, they did the work. I don't think it's the best version, and trying not to squash their spirit, but encourage them to go back and take a second look at this and see what the next iteration of it looks like, and see that you can do better. And I think as a leader, that's a big challenge. That's a tough balance to strike sometimes, because you don't want to discourage your people. You want to encourage your people, but yet you also want the best for the organization.
I want the best for those people and the organization both.
Yeah.
And those DJ Harrington meetings that was his idea. I heard it at a seminar. Taking employees out for lunch. He said if you could do it, he kind of made it in jest that if you could take your employees out for lunch once a year, that'd be great. I still do that to this day with 80 employees. It makes it really hard for the ARA schedule, I know, but
80 employees in 52 weeks in the year.
Yeah, my cholesterol sucks, but that's true. But those opportunities are for me to listen. Yeah. It's for me to listen. They've already had a review with their supervisor. I'm listening to them. That's
really important.
I'm listening to them, and at the beginning,
so they don't feel like they're getting ready to go to lunch and get a lecture.
Right? They won't go. Yeah. They'll be sick. The beginning of the year, we also take an employee feedback. That's very simple. We ask them what they liked about 2025, what they accomplished that they're proud of in 2025, either at the business or personally. What are the burrs in the saddle of the work that you do at Nordstrom's, and what ideas do you have for 2026? And I make it mandatory for each person to fill that out. And it doesn't have to be long. Yeah. And then I take those and we look. And sometimes you look down like, look at this.
How long have you been doing that? Real quick.
I've been doing that for 15 years.
And how many of those ideas did you put into?
Each year, I'm proud to say that we get about 50% of them as things that we could say at the end of the year.
That you actually implement.
That we can say at the end of the year that we made good progress on. Some of them are Pollyanna.
No, I get it.
When somebody writes down better communication, that's hard.
Right.
But if you got 10 people to write down better communication and they're all in the same department,
that's a sign.
That's a sign.
But do you get ideas about process or something?
Yes.
And you go, oh my gosh, and then all of a sudden you've...
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, but most of the good ideas you're going to get are going to come from the people closest to the fire.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So your mom and dad, what are their ages?
My dad is just going to turn 83 in June, and my mom is going to turn 82 in June. They're a year apart.
Oh, that's sweet.
And we hope to have her book finished and published by the time. My goal is her 82nd birthday. I gave it to her as a gift. I hired a ghost writer on her 80th birthday to write the book she always said she was going to write, because later in life, as she would go visit her mother, and she would just tell her mother stories that happened at what we call the funny farm. Yeah. It's Nordstrom's funny farm because it's not what it was when it started. And Grandma would always say to her, Marie, you need to write a book someday and call it It's the Honest to God's Truth.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that is going to be the name of the book. Yeah. I'll give that little tease. So, and it's going to be a story about their life and kind of the forming of the business. And I end up with a lot involvement in the later chapters.
Sure.
But I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, 80, 82, and 83.
And do they still come to work?
Yes. And just recently, and this is the story we were going to get at.
That's amazing. I just think that's...
I got to think if it was 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
It was just before her 80th birthday. You remember I talked earlier about pasture pool?
Mm-hmm. Golf.
Yeah, golf. There's two things I thought I would never ask my father when I was a child.
Yeah.
Do you want to go golfing, and can I ride in your Corvette? Because Corvettes were fiberglass pieces of junk. The neighbors had them.
I think there's a story about you.
Well, that's another podcast. But my dad, he eventually realized that he wanted a 427 special edition Corvette when they came out with that again with what would have been 2005, 4, somewhere in there. And I'm like, I saw a little clipping out of a Trader magazine on his desk. And I said, what's that? And he's like, I kind of think that'd be kind of fun. And so he ended up, I took him to okay, I got to get this quick. Our banker convinced him to come with us one time to a charity golf event, knowing it would be absolutely horrible to have him there. And he was absolutely scared to death to go.
Yeah.
He found that he loved it.
Golf.
Yes. And so to this day, my dad and I are in a men's league on Monday night.
That's amazing.
And we golf. And I took it up because I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of fun doing it. I'm not great, but I love having fun golfing.
Yeah.
And so now today, we can take a Corvette and go golfing.
Nice.
And so I was going somewhere with that, is that they were going to go on a ride now because they got involved with the Corvette Club. Mm-hmm. He's very addictive. He doesn't just have one Corvette. He has a number of them.
Yeah.
My mother, when they went to the Bowling Green, Kentucky museum, bought a $500 raffle ticket and won a build-your-own ZR1 Corvette.
Unbelievable.
And she has a 2010 ZR1 that she won on a $500 raffle ticket. It's orange. It's her favorite color.
Wow.
And so that was after he'd already bought one that when I took him to a charity golf event, Jerry's Auto Sales in Lenox had a blue Z06 Corvette on the course as a show thing.
Right.
And he saw that car. He went back down and bought it the following week. Didn't tell anybody. And then my mom won the car at the museum.
Gosh.
So all of a sudden they've got two.
Yeah.
And then now there's a fleet. Now he's got an obsession to have one for each grandchild, when he dies. So now today they're going to the Corvette Club. And they're very involved. We've had Corvette meetings. If you look at our website, the picture on the website
the parking lot's
is when the
filled.
Corvette Club came to our Nordstrom's 2.0, because now they can drive there on a paved road.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I would have never thought that.
Yeah.
And so they're leaving on a trip, and Mom comes to me. She goes, hey, when I get back, I want to start taking Wednesdays off. And I said, Mom, you realize that you can take any day off you want. You're a volunteer. And
you should have said, I'm sorry, you can't.
I know, I should have played with her. But I said, any other days? Thursday, Friday, Monday? And she's like, no, I think Wednesdays will be good. And I go, then Dad came in about that time, and I go, Mom says she's going to take Wednesdays off. Are you going to go with her? No, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. And he goes, we can't. Their biggest fear, I think, is people don't think they're working. Yeah. It's that era of and I kind of am a little bit of that. My wife drives her crazy, but the badge of honor is that you're relevant and that you're working. And that's, I'm not saying that it's not unusual with other people out there, but in that generation, it's so prevalent. Like he says, what would I get up in the morning to do if I didn't come here? Yeah. He goes, I can only tinker in my shed so much. He goes, I'd like to know what's going on. They like the energy. They like they like the buzz.
Yeah, and it goes right back to what you said about being relevant. And I think it's important. And I think it's important for people at that age to remain engaged. I think it helps them. It helps their brains. It helps their bodies. It's everything about their life is improved by the fact that they have a purpose. They get up. They go somewhere. They do things. Yeah,
it can be a bit of a challenge sometimes in our managers meeting, and I have to look at my dad and say, "No, Dad, we're not doing that." And he but there's other times he speaks up and says something, and I think everybody in the room, they don't want to admit it, but that's exactly right, and he's thinking 10 steps ahead of every one of us.
Wow.
And he knows it.
That's cool. That's cool.
But the only problem is he goes with the same conviction with that idea as the one that's the bad idea.
Yeah.
Or that is not anybody else's priority but his own.
I kind of like that, though.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Anyway, I got way off track there, but
that's all right.
Yeah. So my parents are
they're finally going to take a day off, or at least your mom is.
Yeah. They take some more time off. And my dad, bless his heart, he just recently fell down on the ice and broke 4 ribs. On his back, and I think they said 4 originally. I think it's 2. Yeah. But he's really uncomfortable. But it's this week at 2, he's been slowed down a lot. I haven't seen him as much. Yeah. And so I hope he'll bounce back so we can play that golf league starting here after Memorial Day in May. Yeah. Right now he can't swing a club. No, I'm hoping he can get it back. Yeah. I'm hoping he can get it back because I cherish those moments. Yeah. I cherish those opportunities, and I'm thankful that I have that relationship with my parents. I sit with people and talk, go to a lot of dinners with people after hours, and you hear stories. Last night I was with some people, and we heard stories about brothers that can't get along, and somebody has to be the peacemaker. You've told stories just kind of working through that stuff, family dynamics. Yeah. And we've had some of that with my sisters every now and then, and my mom, dad, and I. But as long as we are straight with each other and say what needs to be said, you can get it. You can get it taken care of and head it off before it becomes a bigger issue and then eventually grows moss on it, and you can't chisel into it to figure out what's even going anymore because people forgot what they're even frustrated about.
This idea that time heals all wounds, I think that's crap.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it applies in some circumstances, but I'll tell you, if you have, I think family is extremely important. Obviously, you do too, and agree. Admittedly, not everybody grew up in a tight family, and so I don't know what that's like. Yeah. And I don't know how to advise into that, but I do know that if you at one time had a good relationship with somebody in your family, and you don't now, Just pick up the phone. Just go see them.
Somebody's got to make the move.
Somebody's got to make a move. Don't go to your grave.
And don't try to fix it all at once.
No. And sometimes you have to agree. This is what I think is hard. Sometimes you have to agree to just, we're not going to resolve it. Let's just move on. Yep. Let's just stop missing out on all these things.
I just recently had that discussion on a business deal. Something that had went sideways a long time ago. And I looked at the people involved. I said, can we forget that?
Yeah.
I said, can we really forget that? We can't, I like to use the term, we can't unring the bell.
Nope.
And let's
put the toothpaste back in.
Nope. And there's 100 of them.
Yeah, I know.
Let's move forward.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what we can do here and move forward. Step by step, day by day, move forward.
Yeah.
This is the day which the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it.
Yeah.
I can't stay there. It's like I said, the way I'm wired, it's hard not to see it any other way.
Yeah.
And as people listen to this podcast, if they made it to the end, my God, there is a new day dawning every day. So if you grew up and didn't have that sort of a family structure, you didn't have that encouragement, and you're a trailblazer on your own, I love you. Because, that's special.
It is.
And if you have those resources and have maybe not taken full advantage of them, get with it.
Yeah.
And step forward.
Sometimes
Step forward.
it's about moving the fence, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you got hurt, but the relationship was important, so you want to go back and try to find some reconciliation. It doesn't mean the fence has to be where it was. You can rebuild a relationship and just move the fence and protect yourself a little bit more.
Yep. I think what you'll find when you read the book that my mom wrote, some of my dad's story is in there, and he was the senator's son growing up, literally. And I think everybody in the small town of Garrettson, not everybody, but that's the way he feels, thought he wouldn't become anything. And he's been trying to prove them wrong for 80 years, 60 years.
Yeah.
But not without in a vindictive way, but just it comes up enough in this what he says. I know he's been thinking about that. And when we sat down and started doing the interviews for the book, some of that stuff comes out. So I guess my point I make is that everybody's you have a different motivation sometimes to do what you do. And for me, my motivation is to have 1 ounce of the integrity and not integrity, that's the wrong word. 1 ounce of the gumption and the risk taking that my parents had to take the risk they did. They lived off $32 a week. I got started in a pretty good position.
Sure.
I didn't have to do that. And so I don't ever want to dishonor what they built. And there's a family name there that means something.
Absolutely.
And so my passion that drives me is to honor that and to honor my Lord and Savior and to honor the people that have helped me along the way. That's what drives me, if people will ask me. And plus, I just like to lead stuff.
Yeah.
I like to build stuff. That's fun for me.
Yeah.
And so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man, I think we've had a great conversation, and
this has been fun. I think I've just been talking a lot.
that's the nature of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine because that's what we're here for. So, yeah, I just want to thank you again. I want to thank you for doing this. I want to thank you for just being so transparent about all these things that we've been talking about. Thank you for your leadership. Obviously, you are one of my bosses, so I just
got to find out that I'm, based on things that are happening, I'll be for an extra year.
That's right. Yeah,
and I just heard downstairs there's a lot of people that didn't catch that. We sent a press out in the memo, but
about Sean,
a lot of people didn't do it. Our good friend Sean Krause has had some family issues with his parent that he has to take care of, and it's his priority in life. He needs to be doing right now.
I think we all agreed that's where we would be if we were in the
So there's
same
a couple
situation.
of us that raised their hand and said. A bunch of us said we can do some different stuff, and I said I'll be president for another year, and Eric Wilbert's going to stay on as past president for another year, and Tom Andre is going to be the budget committee for 2 years, and we'll get our gang back to 5 here after convention this fall. But I just want to thank everybody that is part of ARA. I want to encourage anybody that might listen to this, even if you're not an ARA member, please, 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 even if you don't think it helps you, spend the money, because we're helping you when you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
When you're selling an alternator, Emil's fighting for your rights
to sell the alternator.
Yeah, exactly.
Or any other
whatever
part.
it is.
Yeah.
And so just by getting the dollars to us,
yeah.
What I've learned being on ARA's executive committee is that we are mighty, but we do it very efficiently. And people like you and the staff, Jessica and Kelly and
Tiffany
and Emil and Jennifer that helps us now.
Yeah, Karen
and Karen
Sue.
and people that came before us. Sue,
Yeah.
my consultant. Oh my God,
We could do a whole
podcast there.
I want to
You
get
should
her.
get her on the podcast.
I am going to get her on.
But these people, it's a very, very small organization that has a mighty influence as the advocacy, leadership, standards body for the industry, and a nonprofit for the industry that tries to work it from all sides. And I want you involved. I really want you involved with this. I want you to come to meetings. I want you not to just support your local meetings. Go to the national meetings. If you haven't been to one, take a chance.
Yeah.
That's what we did in 1996. It changed our life and our business. And I've talked to people now that have done the same thing. And I just kind of got to pinch myself and say, oh, that's the story. That's me. People gave me a ladder rung to grab, and we took them. You have to take the rungs that are being offered.
Right.
But that's what getting involved in an association can do for you. So if you're watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, please, please, please join ARA. We need the money to just run an efficient organization. And as there's been some attrition in the industry and consolidation in the industry, it hasn't gotten easier. And we need every independent to make sure they're involved. We want the consolidators involved, and we're going to represent all of you equally because it's the professional automotive recyclers who we need to represent, and that wears many hats.
Yep. Well said. Well said. All right, man. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Did they see the
Really
handshake?
appreciate it. Yeah.